Chapter 152. Boss, Lover's Robbery, Morning Paper Figurine, LV, 20, HP, 20,000. Description: it offers a funeral for love, and the target is you. The paper figurine's information was displayed in front of Guanshan. Just as Guanshan had guessed, a Gray Bee mutant was at least level 20 in the simulator's perspective. Chi, chi, chi. The paper money that was as fine as snow on the ground seemed thin, but under the high-speed internal and external rotation of the paper money, it easily cut through everything around it, making incessant cutting sounds. The walls and floors that appeared to be made of wood in Guanshan's perspective were real, special alloys in reality. They were so hard that they could withstand a full blow from Guanshan's Netherworld Demon Blade, which had a basic attack power of 1,500. Don't ask. If you ask, it means that he tried it out of boredom. But at this moment, these alloys instantly disintegrated under the cutting of these paper pieces. It was enough to show how sharp they were. So of course, they also cut through Guanshan's skin at the same time. When the paper money flew past at high speed, they were like locusts passing through, nibbling everything in their path. When the paper money rotated in 3 dimensions, it was like a pencil sharpener with blades biting inwards and cutting off all the unnecessary parts. And at this moment, Guanshan was the pencil that had been stuffed into it. Wait. When the paper money rotated for the first round, Guanshan said loudly with cold sweat, "I have nothing to do with Qi Xingyu's disappearance. She looked for me because of Captain Sun's mission." There was nothing personal in the conversation. If you don't believe me, you can ask Captain Sun. Although Qi Xingyu used her ability on him, and because of the nature of the ability, it was very ambiguous, and Qi Xingyu was the one who took the initiative. But at this time, in front of her suitor, he definitely could not say that. Qi. Guanshan saw that the wound on his arm was lacerated. Fresh blood seeped out and stained the paper that was flying past, staining it with a layer of red. At the same time, there was a slight itch on his back, throat, outer thighs, and other parts of his body that were relatively exposed. It was obvious that the paper money had also cut him. -4 -7 -6 -3 -1 -1 -3 -2 -4 -5. Dense damage numbers directly appeared on the screen, and the damage was even denser than when he faced with the mutant who could release the poisonous fog. In Guanshan's eyes, it was a swarm of flies in the room. This directly took away nearly 200 HP of Guanshan's. It's okay, it's just a superficial wound." Guanshan took a deep breath and calmed himself down. As his blood pressure and heart rate soared, he took out his Glock 17. However, he still tried to communicate with the other party. He tried to reason with him and move him emotionally. "I'm now the archiving witness of the room. Before the archiving is completed, I should be protected by the Tan formation, and I won't leave the Meridian base. You can ask me whenever you want, but if you attack me, not only is it against the rules, it's also a public confrontation with the Tan formation. Qi Xingyu's whereabouts are unknown now. What's the point of destroying your own future by tangling with me instead of looking for her?" After all, this was the Meridian base, the opponent's home ground. Luo Yi was a Gray Bee mutant, and there was a high probability that he would not be able to beat him. Qi Xingyu indeed only had contact with him before she went missing, so it was normal for him to vent his anger on him. However, in Guanshan's eyes, Luo Yi had become a ferocious paper man, and he did not give any direct response at all. Hiss! Its roar paused for a moment. Guanshan thought that it was going to listen to his advice, and he breathed a sigh of relief. He thought that after knowing the truth, he could finally manually stop the simulation. The simulation seemed to automatically activate when it detected that Guanshan was threatened, and each time, the boss had to be killed to end it. However, since Guanshan now knew that everything he saw was based on reality, then if the boss lost its killing intent, would the simulation end? If it did not end and remained in this dungeon, would it be equivalent to a bug that prevented the formation of the next dungeon? In this way, would he be able to avoid experiencing different horror scenes again and again? Although it was not a complete relief, it was still a thought. However, Guanshan was thinking so optimistically. Immediately, The paperman showed him a strange smile and made a strange sound of laughter and chatter. Its posture was leaning forward and back, and the whole paper rustled as if it was mocking him. Guanshan was stunned. The paperman and Luo Yi's anger in reality were completely different. Although he did not know what the paperman meant by the sound, it was obvious that this was not worried or angry about the disappearance of its loved one. It was even mocking Guanshan's explanation and rhetoric just now. It seemed to just want Guanshan's life. Swoosh! Guanshan's pupils constricted. Although he did not understand the paperman's language, he saw the paperman wave its hand. The paper money danced with it. A strong premonition of danger and a bone-chilling fear exploded from his back, bringing with it a chill and shudder. This Luo Yi did not come back for Qi Xingyu. He just wanted to find a reason to kill me. Why? He and I did not even know each other before this. Why would he want to kill me? Guanshan could not understand, but he did not have time to think. When the paper money turned for the second time, it directly closed in by close to 30 centimeters, without any mercy. This 30 centimeters was the distance between life and death. The paper money that was already stuck to Guanshan's body twisted inwards, as if it had become a white cocoon full of blades. In this snow-white world inside the coffin, clusters of blood shot out from it, like a rose blooming in the snow. Guanshan instantly experienced what it meant to be cut into pieces. His arms and legs were cut into thousands of pieces. His torso and head were also cut open. These parts separated from each other, turning him into a neat fruit platter. Due to the hesitation in his heart, Guanshan did not expect the opponent to kill him in the base. He did not have time to react, and his HP dropped to 0 in an instant. His only thought at that moment was, beep! Guanshan could have taken measures in time, but learning the truth about the simulator affected his judgment. Although he did not feel pain, at that moment, the feeling of watching himself being dismembered was scarier than any of the previous simulations. This was the horror of death. I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated the monster as a human. If it can be a human, it should appear in the form of an NPC. A monster is a monster, and it's all a F***king experience bag. Guanshan was filled with regret as his vision gradually darkened. If I could do it all over again, I would definitely listen to the simulator and kill them all. I won't stop until I've killed them all. But now, it seems like it's too late. Guanshan's vision completely darkened. At that moment, a notification suddenly popped up. You are dead. You have triggered the effect of Buddhist beads of the monk. Buddhist beads of the monk. Effect. For every Buddhist-related item, the effect increases by 5%. Stackable. When HP reaches 0, there's a chance to avoid death and recover 1% HP. HP plus 71. Current HP. 71. The Buddhist beads given by Qingyi. Guanshan's eyes widened, and he was ecstatic. In his vision, the cuts on his body emitted a faint golden light, and they were connected by the golden light. Following his falling posture, he used his hands to support himself and rolled backwards. Borrowing the momentum, his body pieced back together, and at the same time, he left the area surrounded by paper money. PS1. Thank you, readers 1413686985810524416. 7 Not Stuck? I Am Lazy, Shadow Fiend God Concealment, and book friend 20210203011013741 for their tips. PS2. My hand is still aching after a day of rest. Damn, the combination of safflower oil and Yunnan Baiyao. I really wish I had a system that could directly repair it. Chapter 153. Although Guanshan had escaped from the circle of paper money in an instant, his HP was like a candle in the wind. He was still in a precarious situation. The healing charm has to be still for it to take effect, and I don't have any other healing potions left. If I want to recover my HP quickly, I can only rely on the life Mageweth from Magic Pattern Drawing. However, the level 3 skill can only recover 30% of my HP instantly. I'm still not out of danger. I remember there's an emergency rescue point nearby. I'll try to get some healing potions first. Moreover, the people in the base should have realized that something is wrong. If someone is rushing over, they should be in this direction. The moment Guan Shan landed on the ground and stabilized himself, he immediately turned around and rushed toward the exit of the corridor after making up his mind. At this time, the wounds on his body had basically healed. His HP had returned to more than 100, and it did not affect his normal movement. Logically speaking, Guan Shan should not be able to recover his HP without the follow-up effect of the healing potions. However, the injection of the powerful vitality potion from Xiang Wen had greatly increased his self-healing ability. At this moment, it showed its powerful effect when he was fatally injured. There was almost no obstruction when the parts of his body were pieced together. Naturally, all the muscles, meridians, and blood vessels were connected to each other. Of course, his clothes were also pieced together at the same time. If it were in the past, Guan Shan would probably have been delayed for at least a second because he could not immediately adjust his posture when he fell and would definitely fall to the ground. The moment he rushed out, Guan Shan used Magic Pattern Drawing. Magic Pattern Drawing, Level 3, Type, Active, Cooldown, 3 days, Effect, draw one of the mage webs from Life, Protection, Blessing, Thorn to give different effects. Duration, 100 seconds. Can be interrupted. Health. Health increases by 30% immediately and receives faster healing in the following period. Guan Shan followed the system's guidance and put 2 fingers together in between his eyebrows. From a moment he touched his skin, white lines instantly spread across his entire body. These lines were soft and smooth, formed by complex circles and arcs. After spreading across his body, there seemed to be no pattern, but if all of them were spread out, they would be in the shape of a lotus. In a place where he could not see, the lines connected with the red radial lines that looked like cracks on his back, causing the red lines to suddenly light up for a moment and finally converge on the circular pattern at the spikes. This circular pattern, which was originally very blurry, became clear at this moment. It was shaped like an eye. The paper figurine rustled as it was shocked and angry at Guan Shan's resurrection. It seemed to be cursing loudly before waving its arms. Swoosh! Swoosh! It was as if the paper money had been swept up by the wind, following him like a shadow, and suddenly rolled up like a stormy sea. Swoosh! Swoosh! Swooshosh! Swoosh swoosh! Swoosh! Swoosh swoosh! 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 Even so, he was constantly scratched by the paper money. Fortunately, the continuous healing ability of the Vitality Mage Weth was quite good, allowing his health bar to slowly increase. However, Guan Shan knew that these paper money were the transparent fishing lines that he had seen before in the real world. These fishing lines are made of special material. Under high-speed movement, their cutting ability is ridiculously strong. Coupled with Luo Yi's psychokinesis, they have sufficient flexibility. Their lethality in a real battle is simply terrifying. The difference between a grade B and a grade C is just too big. Even if Luo Yi is only level 20 and should have just been promoted, he can still kill a grade C instantly, just like what I did just now. I have to hold on until Sun Han arrives, or I'm dead meat. Guan Shan narrowly broke through the blockade again and finally saw a notification point on the side of the wall. Medical point. Effect. A special instrument set up in the wall, built-in first aid kit. Description. Use immediately when opened, quick and convenient. What the F***? I don't have time to open it now. Bang. Guan Shan directly punched the outer layer of the coffin board, causing it to cave in. He then reached his hand into the gap and forcefully bent the steel-like wooden board, although it was actually the base's alloy steel wall. The alarm inside the medical point was triggered, and a piercing sound was heard. However, it did not matter now. Guan Shan had casually broken an alarm just now, and now the entire base was ringing with the alarm, so it did not make a difference. Guan Shan glanced at it and saw at least 2 rolls of first aid bandage and a bottle of disinfectant. Guan Shan was shocked. F***, so normal bandages can also be judged as usable items. Then, aren't all the medical points in the base supplies? Disinfectant. Effect. Immediately recover 10% health. Description. 1 bottle refreshes the mind. 2 bottles make you never tired. 3 bottles make you immortal. I understand the logic, but why can even disinfectant restore health? How much poison do I have on me for it to increase my health just by washing it? A bandage could restore 20% of his health, and the disinfectant could also restore 10%. Guanshan's mouth twitched. In this description, does it want me to drink it? Guanshan did not understand, but it did not stop him from using it on himself. He casually tied 2 bandages on himself, and at the same time unscrewed the disinfectant and splashed it on his hand. Voila, this added up to 50% of his health. His health bar immediately returned to the safe zone, and Guanshan's anxious heart also relaxed. However, Guanshan could not relax yet. In this short delay, the paper money had already caught up. Bang, bang, bang. However, at this moment, Guanshan could finally fight back with peace of mind. He raised his Glock 17 and fired continuously at the paper money. Due to the effect of the bifurcated gun barrel, all the incendiary bullets split apart. For a moment, it was like a fairy scattering flowers, and the bifurcated bullets almost filled the sky. Boom! The violent second explosion spread the flames in all directions. The paper money was blown away by the shockwave and was instantly burned to ashes. The attack was immediately disintegrated. Guanshan retreated as he fought. He turned his gun and fired at the paper man without hesitation. However, the bullets froze in midair and could not move forward even an inch. Then, all the bullets lost their momentum and fell to the ground. At the same time, the paper man suddenly realized that Guanshan was no longer in front of him. The young man who was originally there had disappeared. Guanshan leaned against the door at the end of the corridor and sighed in relief. However, his heart was numb. The gun was useless against the paper man. Fortunately, the secret behind the door was still useful. All he needed to do now was wait. Wait for Sun Han to arrive, or wait for an opportunity. The paper man floated in midair, and more blood flowed out of its empty eyes. At the same time, the smile on its face became even more exaggerated. Pah! A bloody handprint suddenly appeared on the ground in front of the paper man. The place where the handprint was hit caved in. 1, 2, 5, 10. The paper man floated forward, and countless bloody handprints suddenly appeared in the corridor. They covered Guanshan's direction, and the entire corridor suddenly fell under the AoE attack. Pa 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 pa. In the blink of an eye, the bloody handprints were already in front of Guanshan. Of course, there was also the paper man. He took a deep breath. Xidagarba statue, enhancement 7. Shield activated. Guanshan took out the demon knife and rotated it. Under the Buddha's light, he rolled forward, kicked his feet, and jumped in front of the paper man. The bloody handprints all hit the shield, and immediately cracks appeared on it. P.S. Thanks. Oh, if no one wants to reward me, I'll put a bowl here, hint. Chapter 154. Crack. Guanshan could almost hear the sound of the Xidagarba statue's shield breaking. There was no doubt about the attack power of the bloody handprints. Looking at the corridor that was almost squashed into the shape of a can, one could imagine what would happen if the handprints landed on a person's body. A grade B psychokinesis ability user could kill a low-level ability user with just a thought. Unfortunately, the other party probably didn't expect that they would meet a special case. Guanshan gave the other party a performance of, "I'm dead. Oofed. I'm lying, I'm alive again." However, such a performance might only happen once in a lifetime. This time, if he could not severely injure the other party, Guanshan would really be in danger. Bang! The moment the bloody handprints almost covered the entire shield, the latter finally could not withstand the pressure and instantly shattered into golden fragments, dissipating into the air. This also meant that if Guanshan did not use the Xidagarba statue, he would end up like the shield at this moment. At the same time, Guanshan instantly closed in on the paper figurine. The demon saber in his hand transformed into a black arc that resembled a shooting star, slashing horizontally at the paper figurine's waist at lightning speed. The sound of the wind being torn apart was extremely sharp, almost like a howl. However, the paper doll's expression was mocking. It did not dodge or evade. as if it did not care about his attack at all. Guanshan's slash did not have any technique. He just used his strength to the extreme. It looked very straightforward and was very easy to block. However, the reason for this was because this slash was actually a disguise. The real killing move was gravity control. He exerted almost all of the 1,000 kilograms gravity on the paper doll at this moment, and the remaining bit was used to increase the power of the demon's sword through micromanipulation. He bet that Luo Yi's combat ability was extremely weak. This was because the simulator used the paper doll as Luo Yi's image, and from past experience, this represented some of his characteristics. Therefore, the paper doll would generally give the impression that it was weak and fragile. Weak fire was the most obvious, but bullets were ineffective against the other party. Therefore, Guanshan's pistol, which was equipped with incendiary bullets, was useless. The other was that it was fragile. That meant that its body was very weak. As far as Guanshan knew, Luo Yi had once taken a direct hit from physical ability user. However, Luo Yi's psychokinesis was also nicknamed Jack of all trades, because this ability could do almost anything. Then, in the above example, it was very possible that Luo Yi used psychokinesis to protect the surface of his body and not his own physical strength. Now, Guanshan's plan was to catch Luo Yi off guard and use gravity manipulation to heavily injure or even kill him while Luo Yi was focused on him. Crack! The moment Guanshan exerted his gravity on the paper doll seemed to be flattened. The whole paper folded into a Z shape, and the bloody handprint suddenly stopped increasing. Minus 12,465 HP. Half of his HP was gone. Roar! The paper doll let out a beast-like roar, and the expression on its face became extremely ferocious. At the same time, a lot of blood flowed out of the places where the paper was torn and the pale paper was dyed red. However, the next moment, the torn part of the paper doll's head became bigger and bigger. Then, a half-rotten head appeared under the white paper. Then the neck, the shoulders, and the arms. Half of the humanoid monster seemed to have taken off its clothes and crawled out of the paper doll. The humanoid monster's hands moved forward to block Guanshan's saber. Clang! The sound of metal clashing was heard at the point of contact, as if the monster's arms were made of iron. As expected, Guanshan's heart skipped a beat. He guessed that Luo Yi's psychokinesis was helping him. Then, as if to verify his guess, Guanshan felt that the gravity he exerted on the paper doll was resisted by another force. It could no longer gather in the middle, as if the paper doll had suddenly turned into a rock. The half-rotten head was inches away from him. Its sharp teeth were as complicated as an electrocardiogram. Its half-shriveled eyes stared at Guanshan viciously. It grabbed the knife with one hand and punched at Guanshan with the other. The punch was so fast that Guanshan could barely react. However, he guessed that most of the opponent's psychokinesis was used to resist gravity, so it was definitely not a threat. Bang! Guanshan was sent flying. He even rolled on the ground twice, his HP plummeting once more. However, it was still okay this time. It only dropped about 20%. This also meant that Guanshan's guess was right. The pressure from gravity manipulation on the paper doll prevented it from diverting too much energy to deal with Guanshan. Guanshan rolled and crawled. Before he could steady himself, he took out a book from his backpack. The title of the book was 100 Years of Solitude. Effect: by tearing off a page, you can leave your current coordinates. There can be at most 2 coordinates. If there are more than 2, the nearest coordinates will be automatically erased. Coordinates can be teleported. Current coordinates, 12. Sila. Guanshan tore off a page. The coordinates suddenly became 22. He could not help but smile. He heaved a sigh of relief and immediately chose to use it. The 2 pages torn from 100 Years of Solitude could form a teleportation channel. The other page, from the beginning, was in Guanshan's room. Now, this guy had been carried by Guanshan for a long distance. It was no longer possible to catch up to Guanshan immediately. Huh, you didn't expect this, did you? This is my escape route. Teleport, Guanshan said silently. Then his vision blurred and he was back in his room. At this time, There were several NPCs who looked like ghost messengers standing in his room. They were searching and guarding. Guanshan's sudden appearance had obviously shocked them. Guanshan was also shocked by them. Guanshan then realized that these people were the logistics of the Tan formation. He immediately shouted, "Luo, E from your base wants to kill me. There's something wrong with him. You guys run. Go find Sun Han." Guanshan randomly grabbed the nearest one. "Where's Sun Han?" That person panicked and trembled as he pointed outside the door. "He's right there." Guanshan strode out of the room. Sure enough, after a few steps, he saw an extremely eye-catching NPC level indicator. Level 24. Although in Guanshan's eyes, this person was no longer that person, this incomparably noble level was definitely Sun Han. There were still traces of the battle, especially the large pool of blood left by Guanshan. It was very eye-catching. Sun Han had probably just arrived and wanted to walk in the direction of the battle traces. She did not expect Guanshan to take a detour and return to the starting point. Guanshan hurriedly called out to her, "Captain Sun, there's something wrong with Luo E." Sun Han's face was full of shock. Just as she was about to speak, she saw Luo E, who was in a sorry state and covered in blood, walking out from the corner. His expression was ferocious as he pointed at Guanshan. "Captain Sun, don't believe him. He's the murderer who killed Sister Yu. I came over to question him, but after a few words, he gave himself away and attacked me directly. He wanted to silence me. PS1. Thank you to Ruoru Breeze. Why Did You Go by Mabai Silent Waves, Blade 1866, and TT for their tips. PS2 here. Do you have a ticket? Raises Bowl. Chapter 155. What Sun Han was facing at this moment was perhaps the most difficult and simplest multiple-choice question she had ever encountered in her life. On one side was a teammate she had been with for more than 3 years, and she had a good relationship with the missing vice captain she was looking for. Although it was a good relationship, it was actually an ambiguous relationship, and Luo, he had always felt that he had a good chance. However, Sun Han, who was familiar with Qi Xingyu, knew very well that this woman was a true Sea King. She didn't even care about Luo E, a B-grade ability user, and only regarded him as one of her lackeys. She had always thought that as long as it was a man, she could use him. To a certain extent, Qi Xingyu herself was far more dangerous than her supernatural ability. As for Luo E, in Sun Han's understanding, he was a very simple and straightforward man. He was quite obsessed with Qi Xingyu, and it could even be said that he was playing with her in the palm of his hand. Every time he returned from a mission, the first thing he did was definitely to find Qi Xingyu. Whether it was to show off his achievements or to give gifts, he was always trying to please Qi Xingyu. He would always call her Sister Yu and Sister Yu. In other words, Luo Yi's character was basically not likely to lie, and he really cared about Qi Xingyu. At this moment, Luo Yi, who was wholeheartedly devoted to Qi Xingyu, was a frontline combatant of the base, covered in blood, and was obviously seriously injured. He also pointed out the very suspicious Guanshan as Qi Xingyu's murderer. On the other side was the foreign ability user who had just arrived at the base a few days ago. His behavior was full of doubts, and he was the only person who had a conflict with Qi Xingyu before she went missing. At this moment, although Guanshan claimed that he was being chased by Luo Yi, in fact, there was no blood on his body at all. He was clean and tidy, as if he had just woken up from his bedroom. He didn't look like he was being chased at all. No matter how one thought about it, it was very suspicious. But in any case, the statements of these two people were contradictory, and one of them must be lying. Sun Han received the news that Luo Yi went straight to Guanshan's residence as soon as he entered, but what happened after that was unclear, because the surveillance at Guanshan's door had been broken in advance. It was definitely a premeditated action. When they arrived, the battle had already been going on for some time, and there was only a completely distorted corridor and a floor full of blood. If one were to relate the current state of Luo Yi and Guanshan, their first thought would be that the blood was shed by Luo Yi. Then, who do you believe? If he made the wrong choice, he might attract a hidden enemy for the base. But this situation couldn't be any more obvious no matter how one looked at it. However, there was a doubtful point. Would Guanshan, who had not shown any abnormalities in the base for so many days, give himself away just because of a few words from Luo Yi? It was not that there was no such possibility, but Qi Xingyu had described Luo Yi as a fool who would come and go as she wished. He couldn't even distinguish the simplest lies. Sun Han hesitated for a moment. Then, she suddenly remembered that Luo Yi had an instructor with him on this mission, but this time, Luo Yi came back early. In the past, this kind of situation was not unheard of, so out of habit, Sun Han only did a simple identity verification. If there was a problem, it was most likely during the mission. Seeing that Sun Han did not speak, Luo Yi looked anxious. He covered the wound on his abdomen, coughed, and walked toward her. He said sternly, "Captain Sun, what are you doing? Why are you just watching? Hurry up and do something. He's the murderer. I'm already injured like this. Are you going to wait for him to kill everyone in the base?" Although Guanshan did not understand what the paperman was saying, he was sure that it was definitely not something good. Moreover, the red light in its eyes was flashing, as if it was scheming something. Since Sun Han was in front of him, Luo, he must be trying to distort the truth. F***CK. How can NPC be bewitched by you? Guanshan quickly said, "Captain Sun, you're right. Think about it carefully. He's a Class B, and I'm a Class C. I almost died fighting a Class C room. How could I beat him up like this? These injuries are obviously faked by him." Paperman, who is the one distorting the truth? Why are you so skilled? Guanshan laughed. What a joke. I'm a reporter who relies on traffic. How could I let you win with words? Sun Han was stunned for a moment before realization dawned on him. That made F***king sense. The difference in strength between Class B and Class C could not be made up with skills. Moreover, Luo, he was an experienced fighter. How could he be beaten to this extent by Class C? Sun Han immediately turned on her earpiece and telepathically connected to the special channel set up by the instructor of the Noon Brigade. The instructor immediately replied, "What's wrong? Is there anything wrong with the base?" Sun Han asked, "Luo, what's wrong with me?" Luo Yi's voice came from the other side of the earpiece. He sounded anxious. "Captain Sun, I heard that sister you went missing. What's the situation? I'll come over immediately after my mission. These Gue sex scammers are causing trouble again. They came at this time, damn it. Captain Sun, what's wrong? Are you okay?" Sun Han took a deep breath and felt a chill spread from his back to his body. He shivered as goosebumps appeared on his arms. If Luo Yi was still on a mission, then who was this Luo Yi in front of him? Sun Han asked again, "Do you still have your ID badge?" "Yes, how?" Luo Yi paused and said in surprise, "How did it disappear?" The instructor realized that something was wrong and immediately asked in a deep voice, "Is someone pretending to be Luo Yi?" "Yes," Guanshan suddenly shouted, "Be careful." Bang! Sun Han only felt that he was hit by a cannonball in an instant. The pain hit him, and the Luo in his vision showed a ferocious smile, then suddenly disappeared. Whoosh! F***CK. Guanshan used gravity manipulation in an instant, reached out and caught her, and then flew out together. Is this the full power of a Class B Arcanist? Even a 1,000 kilograms gravity manipulation can't offset it. Fortunately, he exposed himself. Sun Han should be on my side now. The thought flashed through Guanshan's mind, and then he used innocent children's painting to create a crayon-style grassland where he landed, avoiding the second damage. He held Sun Han firmly and landed on the ground with the help of the grassland. Guanshan sighed. As expected of a children's painting-style grassland, soft and warm, even full of elasticity and full of security. He turned his head, and Sun Han, who had turned into a stick man in front of him, spat out a rainbow. Guanshan's eyes widened. Although he knew that Sun Han was probably vomiting blood at this moment, and it seemed that the amount of blood was quite large, and his HP bar had been cut by half. The injury was probably a little serious, but this scene was really a little weird. After Sun Han vomited, he looked at the paper man and panted. "He is not Luo." Luo Yi laughed, and his tone completely changed. TSK, you only understand now? Isn't it a little late?" Sun Han sneered. Is it? I think the timing is just right. Guanshan looked in front of Luo Yi with a subtle gaze, and there was a flashing prompt. Explosive level 3. Guanshan could clearly see that Sun Han had set up an explosion at the spot he was standing at the moment he was sent flying. At this moment, Sun Han raised his hand and clenched his fist, and the place where Luo Yi was located exploded instantly. Boom! PS1. Thank you. When I have money, I will buy tickets, a bag of potato boss, Great Old 1A, and Pavilion Master Xianxing's rewards. PS2. I will definitely be able to watch the 3rd chapter today, Self-Hypnosis. Chapter 156. The Explosive Level 2. That Guanshan had seen before was the self-destructing collar worn by the cannon fodder from the Tan formation. It was to prevent the cannon fodder from defecting again. At the same time, it was a special explosive that could be used at any time in an emergency. Naturally, it had to be made a little more powerful. Therefore, this level 2 explosive, which the simulator determined to be a level 2 bomb, had once blown away 3/5 of the C-rank ability user Tao Luo's HP, which was 6,000 HP. Now, the level 3 explosive created by Sun Han's ability had evaporated 10,000 HP from Luo Yi in an instant, although it seemed to have only increased by 4,000 HP. However, Luo Yi was now protected by psychokinesis, and he did not have to be distracted to fight Guanshan like before. If not for the protection of psychokinesis, this guy would probably have been killed instantly. When Guanshan saw the number of over 10,000 emerging from the flames and smoke, his heart was filled with amazement. Was this a battle between B-grade ability users? Tens of thousands of HP every second. It was terrifying. However, what made Guanshan even more amazed was Sun Han's combat awareness. Luo Yi's attack just now was almost without warning, but Sun Han was still able to put down the bomb in an instant and complete the counterattack. What was professionalism? This was professionalism. It could be seen that what Schumann Lin said before, Sun Han's combative personality that liked to find people to fight, was not a joke. She really intended to train herself. After all, her ability was so strong, and as a support member, she must have been unwilling to accept it. Especially with her amazing observation skills, she could actually tell that this person was not Luo. Wait. Guanshan suddenly reacted. He's not Luo Yi. The effect of innocent children's painting was not over yet, and Sun Han spat out a small mouthful of rainbow. She raised her hand to wipe the rainbow off the corner of her mouth and took out a syringe to inject herself. She said, Luo Yi is still on a mission. No, to be precise, he had already completed the mission, but now he's being held back by the people of the Gue Yi sect, and his identity badge was stolen. Therefore, this Luo Yi is most likely someone from the Gue Yi sect in disguise, and the target should be you. Wasn't their target him? Before he could even finish his sentence, he had already rushed over to kill him. The corner of Guanshan's mouth twitched. He glanced at the pool of rainbow that was still shining on the ground and forcibly shifted his attention back. I heard that you killed a Nirvana Realm cultivator from the Gue Yi sect. You must have offended them, but I don't know which superpower user they are. This group of swindlers appears and disappears like ghosts, and their abilities are strange. Their information is updated very slowly. As Sun Han spoke, he looked at the dust cloud and informed the other non-combat personnel in the base to evacuate. He ordered those with combat ability to gather here and seal off all the exits. He also ordered the military base outside to send people to surround the area. She then asked Guanshan, is this person's ability exactly the same as Luo Yi's? Even a fishing line is exactly the same. Then I have a rough idea. Puppet Master Horny's ability is to create clones that are exactly the same, but they can only exist for 2 to 3 hours. The identity badge of the Tan formation can't be cloned, so it can only be stolen. Sun Han stood up. Her complexion was much better, and the HP on her head had recovered to about 4/5. She raised her hand and placed a row of explosives level 3 in front of her. It was very intimidating. All right, it's just a puppet. So what if he replicates Luo Yi's ability? As long as I'm here, he won't be able to do anything to you. Luo Yi's psychokinesis isn't enough to interfere with my explosives. As Sun Han spoke, she was about to take a detour to the exit on the other side of the tunnel and seal it off. Guan Shan hurriedly said, "Wait, I can teleport there directly. It's faster." "Okay." Sun Han nodded. She wasn't surprised because the information did mention that Guan Shan had many superpowers, including the ability of space. Guan Shan wanted to see if he could teleport with someone else, so he tore another page of 100 Years of Solitude. The original second coordinate was erased and replaced with the current one because it was farther away, and the new connection point was the coordinate in his room. With a swoosh, the two of them were teleported to Guan Shan's original room. With 2 more steps, they could seal the exit on the other side from the opposite direction. Guan Shan thought, "There doesn't seem to be a limit on the number of people who can teleport. No. There must be other restrictions. I could try again next time." Sun Han's mouth twitched as she watched Guan Shan put the book away. She thought to herself, "Isn't this the book that I saw in the surveillance video? It seems very awesome." Qi Xingyu said that Guan Shan was pretending to be strong to deliberately attack her and make her give up on the fight. But now it seems this thing seems to be just a tool. Qi Xingyu said that because she was interested in Guan Shan, but because Guan Shan was an outsider, she was trying to provoke her into authorizing it. Sun Han sighed her heart. She knew Qi Xingyu's character, but she was also the type who was easily provoked. She did feel sorry for Guan Shan. "Although you sneaked in, the people who know Luo Yi the best are all here. Since he dared to use this clone, it means that he should have expected it, so he wanted to kill you. His goal is clear." Sun Han patted Guan Shan's shoulder, then frowned. "But I have to say, you've really offended a lot of people. Forget about the killer bee. You can even offend someone like Horny from the whole uniting sect." Guan Shan laughed dryly. "But Captain Sun is here, isn't it? I'm all by myself, and I'm very scared. That's why I asked you to save my life. Although we have only known each other for a few days, as long as you are someone I can rely on, you are my family." Sun Han cast a sidelong glance at Guan Shan and said, "Horny is in a class. Even I am no match for him." She pointed at the smoke from the explosion and said, "He can create at least 10 of these B-class clones. Additionally, Luo Yi has only just advanced. He is at the bottom of the B class. A support member like me with a slightly higher energy level can easily trap him. As for Horny, he can create the most powerful B-class clones and control them. If not for the fact that he wanted to sneak into the base, he would not have chosen someone like Luo Yi." Guan Shan, 10. This B-class clones had killed him. It was hard to imagine that there would be 10 clones stronger than Luo Yi. Guan Shan now had a direct understanding of the strength of an A-class. Sadly, for some unknown reason, he had offended an A-class Esper. Humph. When the smoke and dust dissipated, Luo, whose body was covered in bruises, stood in the same place and sneered. "The 10 formation's intelligence is as bad as ever. But this time I was careless." The remaining 2,000 plus HP on his head was rapidly decreasing. He coughed twice and looked at Guan Shan. Then he suddenly showed a very appreciative expression. Not bad at all. Luo, he looked at him as if he was looking at a rare piece of jade. One who has really misjudged this time. What a stubborn stone. He is clearly a piece of unpolished jade. With such amazing vitality, as long as he is polished a little, he will be liked by the Divine Master. Guan Shan frowned. 1-0. Luo Yi said, "You haven't seen him before? He is the person responsible for educating Qin de Guang." Guan Shan's pupils contracted. Anger rose in his heart. It's him. It was this person who instigated Qin de Guang to sacrifice Han Ying and her mother, destroying an ordinary family. Luo Yi smiled and said, "Looks like you remember now. I was his former educator and guided him onto the right path. Wano also carried out my will and also became Qin de Guang's educator. I can see that you have regrets in your heart. Tell me I whoosh." A black shadow flashed across the air and stabbed into Luo Yi's throat, interrupting his words. It turned out that it was Guan Shan who threw the demon sword in his hand. He was furious. Damn it, you talk too much. P.S. Thank you to Silent Waves and Eyes of the Starry Sky for your tips. PS2. Damn it, I've contacted the agent and rented the house to me. There's still people coming to look at the house in the middle of the night. They came once 3 days ago. I'm speechless now. Chapter 157. The demon blade pierced through Luo Yi's throat, but he did not die immediately. He tilted his head, and his smile and voice were very strange. So stubborn. But it doesn't matter, there's still time. The so-called enlightenment is not something that can be achieved overnight. Take Qin Guang, for example. He only took half a year to become a Class C. It's really sad. If someone could be enlightened in an instant, then wouldn't the teachings of the Lord God be too cheap? At this time, the HP bar above Luo Yi's head was only left with a few drops, but he still looked very calm. He thought for a while and muttered, "But since you are already the chosen Nirvana realm person and have passed my test, then at least I don't want you to die in the hands of the killer bees. I'll just remind you that they're coming for you, or perhaps you'll take the initiative to look for them." The forehead of Luo Yi suddenly split open, and a golden eye opened. The pupil was a strange rectangle, and his voice changed again. It was ethereal and even had a strange echo. Fallen leaves returned to their roots, lost paths returned to their hometowns, fleeting moments of youth. Gone like this, only returning to one is eternal. After saying that, he melted into a pool of wax-like substance, flowing on the ground without any signs of life. Sun Han stared warily at the motionless corpse. After confirming that he was really dead, he frowned and couldn't help but spit. "What the hell is this beep? Fraud talking about? Return single god sect. When will this group of malignant tumors be cleaned up? Every time they say that they want to join forces to fight the criminal organization, there is no follow-up." Sun Han cursed for a while before explaining the situation to the instructor, who was far away and the real Luo Yi. Only then did he turn to look at Guan Shan and said, "I really didn't expect Horny to be so shameless as to pretend to be seriously injured in order to frame you. However, he is too smart for his own good. If I didn't hear that you were crying for your parents when you came out of the room, I would have believed it. However, since even Horny is using this as a reason to frame you, it will clear your name." The corner of Guan Shan's mouth twitched. "Actually, it's not that bad. It's not as bad as crying for your parents." He saw the calculation in her face. But the thing that worried him was that the countdown to destroy the scenario was still there. Guan Shan actually didn't understand what he was saying at the end, but based on his previous experience, he knew that this guy was good at deceiving people. He was definitely trying to mislead them again. The instance dungeon was about to end. Guan Shan could not accept any more mishaps. In any case, since this body was just a puppet of Horny's, Horny would definitely not care about the life or death of this body. Even if he wanted to ask something, Horny would definitely not respond. Instead, Horny would deceive him. Oh no, deceive Sun Han. Guan Shan didn't want to create more trouble for himself when there was already a gap in information. Then he might as well kill him and be done with it. The only thing Guan Shan understood from this instance dungeon was that he could no longer hesitate. Even if it was someone he knew, once he entered the simulated scenario, he would have to throw away all his previous cognition and logic. Otherwise, he would fall into the same dangerous situation as before due to hesitation. Hesitation would lead to defeat. So far, none of the monsters simulated by the simulator were innocent. All of them were purely after Guan Shan's life. Guan Shan looked at the countdown and turned to Sun Han. There must be a problem with this pool of unknown liquid left here by that scammer. Let's evacuate first. Sun Han nodded. I'm getting the logistics and withdraw to come over. Earlier, the instructor told me that Horny uses special liquid explosives to make his puppets. They will only take effect after death. There are many people who accidentally fall for it. At the very least, we need to leave the base to be safe. The two of them evacuated the scene until they reached the helipad outside the base. White Knight and Shuman Lin, who had evacuated earlier, were the first to greet them. White Knight's face was filled with admiration. You're really something. You haven't even had a few days of peace, and you've already stirred up trouble. I used to think that I was a troublemaker, but after meeting you, I know that I'm nothing. By the way, Did Luo Yi intend to kill you out of jealousy? Guanshan shook his head and explained. Then he heard a muffled explosion coming from the base. If Guanshan were to describe it, it would be like popping corn from the outside. There's almost no vibration. It was obvious that the design of the base had taken a lot of effort. But on the other hand, it also showed how strong Luo Yi's combat power was, as he could cut the walls of the base like paper, although this was not the real thing. Thinking of this, Guanshan suddenly realized a serious problem. He turned his head and asked seriously, Captain Sun, what about the real Luo Yi? What's his attitude? Don't tell me he wants to beam me up too? Sun Han hummed and said vaguely, It's hard to say. He just asked me what happened. Luo Yi is a straightforward person, and you were indeed the one who had a conflict with Xingyu at that time. But don't worry, he still knows the rules. Okay, I understand. Guanshan sighed and asked with a headache, When will he come back? Tomorrow. Such a big thing happened in the base. Someone must come back to take charge. Sun Han patted her chest, but don't worry, the instructor will come back together. I guarantee that nothing will happen. The more you say this, the more I panic. Guanshan muttered, I have some matters to attend to during this period of time. Previously, we agreed that I would be allowed to go out on missions. It'll be good for me to go out and avoid adding to your troubles. He was really afraid that the simulator would judge the real Luo Yi as a monster. Otherwise, he would have to go to the dungeon again. Sun Han was a little hesitant. The matter of Qi Xingyu's disappearance had not been solved. She felt a little uneasy to let Guanshan go out now. Moreover, Horny's words indicated that he had already regarded Guanshan as the next Nirvana Realm expert. These charlatans and madmen were the type of people who would not give up until they achieved their goals. They would definitely attack Guanshan again. At this time, Bai suddenly said, Speaking of which, the corridor where Qi Xingyu disappeared has been lit all this time? Sun Han nodded. What's wrong? I've asked people to search there many times, but there was no result. Bai raised a finger and said, I just had a guess. The box might actually be an independent space. Since that person said that he could find it, he couldn't have let her go to the end of the world. Then, is it possible that she's actually right in front of us? Guanshan was stunned. You mean she's still in that corridor? Bai nodded. Yes, it's dark under the light. We could try to restore the scene. Maybe a miracle will happen. Sun Han and Guanshan looked at each other and felt that it made sense. Let's go and try. They returned to the corridor. Because Qi Xingyu had disappeared when the lights flickered, the base had never turned off the lights after they repaired the corridor. There were always people guarding and checking here. But no one thought of turning off the lights again. Because the power of the base was connected together, Sun Han asked the logistics personnel in charge of the base's power supply to turn off the lights. The low sound of the power supply being turned off was heard. Everyone's vision suddenly fell into darkness. Guanshan turned on his nuclear flashlight. What appeared in the darkness and was shrouded by the light was an already shriveled corpse. PS1. Thank you. 20170204200908805 for the tip from Starry Sky Ice. PS2. I saw a bug disappear in front of my eyes. Sigma. Chapter 158. Have you confirmed her identity? Yes, it's confirmed. Sun Han sat next to Guanshan and looked ahead with a heavy expression. They were now in the base's medical department. Not far ahead was Qi Xingyu's body, which was tightly sealed. She died of dehydration. There were no other wounds on her body, but her muscles were severely strained. It seemed that she had been running for a long time in an extremely dry environment. In addition, a large amount of starch residue was found in her stomach. It seemed to be from some kind of steam bun. Combined with Guanshan's description, it was easy to imagine that Qi Xingyu was running around like a headless fly in an enclosed, dark space, and the owner of that space had thoughtfully prepared food for her. At first, she refused, but after a few days, due to extreme hunger, she finally chose to eat the food. But in a situation where there was no water intake, the food became a hypnotic, leading her to a painful death. Perhaps only Qi Xingyu herself knew how terrifying this experience was. Bai was wandering around the body. From time to time, He would touch his chin or mutter to himself. It seemed that his detective's occupational disease was acting up again, or was driven by his overly vigorous sense of justice. He wanted to figure out who did this. But looking at his deeply furrowed brows, he probably had no clue. Sun Han said, "The logistics department has already investigated everything. There's not even a trace of energy level left. To be able to do this, the person who did this is definitely a grade A or even higher. But when did Xingyu offend such a level of ability user? Just like how ordinary members of the Tan formation did not know who the Heavenly STEM squad was, where they were, and what they did, they had almost no communication with these high-level ability users. And these people's information would not be made public. Even if they wanted to find out who it was, they had no way to start. Not to mention, it was useless even if they found out." Sun Han clenched his fists and sighed. Another unsolved case. But Sun Han could probably guess the most likely reason. Qi Xingyu had a habit of privately abusing her ability. Although her ability was not dangerous, it was easy to attract hatred to a certain extent. Did she not deserve to die? Who cared? If ability users wanted to kill someone, they did not even need a reason. There were too many such cases. Guan Shan. Again? Sun Han looked at him and said, "It's only been a month since you joined the Tan formation, right? In your opinion, what kind of existence are espers? Is it good or bad?" Guan Shan thought for a while and said, "It's a mixed bag, but it seems that there are far more bad people than good people. Even in the Tan formation, there are at least a quarter of criminals who choose to be recruited in order to survive." He spread out his hands. "Probably, many people also think that I'm very scary." "Indeed." Sun Han smiled and said, "You're quite clear-headed. Espers themselves are different. They're dissociated or even detached from society. Xia Lei probably didn't tell you that the Taiyan formation has a central dispatching department, and the Heavenly STEM squad is directly under the central dispatching department. All of their actions are only handled by the central dispatching department. The beginning of their file number is no longer human world, but border connection. This is the privilege of an A class." Sun Han's eyes sank, and he said in a low voice, "Law, morality, these things can no longer bind them. Only a higher power, that is, strength, can make them obedient. Under such circumstances, as long as they are obedient, what can't they do? It's just that under normal circumstances, they won't do this. Even the Tan formation can only give them this kind of treatment, let alone an A-class criminal like Horny. Killing people is really a trivial matter." Guan Shan opened his mouth and was a little surprised. "Are ability users above the A-class that strong?" Sun Han changed the topic and asked, "In fact, the Yohao group used to be the strongest among our 3 groups. They had 3 B-class and 1 ability user who was close to the A-class. Do you know why they have fallen to this state now? Even Xia Lei was parachuted in not too long ago." Without waiting for Guan Shan to answer, he answered his own question. "Because just a year ago, the Yohao group received a mission. At first, they thought it was just an ordinary B-class ability user, but after some investigation, they ended up provoking an A-class ability user. And the result of that mission was total annihilation." Sun Han sighed. "The world of ability users is so unreasonable. Even in our group, almost 2/3 of the members have been replaced since I joined. It's better to get used to it early." Guan Shan, why did he feel that he was in danger? Had Horny already set his sights on him? Sun Han knew what he was thinking when he saw his expression. He comforted him. "You don't have to worry for the time being. Horny thinks you are a nirvana who needs to be educated. According to the procedure of the Return to Unity sect, he will try to brainwash and rope you in, and then use force to coerce you. In the process, he will even protect you." Guan Shan didn't feel comforted at all because he had seen the methods of the Return to Unity sect on Qin Deguang. Sun Han added, "Oh right, he also said that the killer bee might come looking for you. You should be careful." Guan Shan recalled the last part of the paper figurines chattering and asked Sun Han if there was anything else. "The fallen leaves return to their roots. The lost path returns home. The fleeting moment of youth, the passing of time is like this?" Guan Shan frowned. What was he talking about? What was he trying to say? Sun Han patted him on the shoulder. "He's a scammer. If he explained it to you clearly, how could he fool you? Anyway, Now that Xingyu has been found, you're cleared of suspicion. Go out and lie low for a while. I'll find someone to accompany you." After that, she walked to Qi Xingyu's body and ordered the others to do the final treatment. Guanshan also stood up and looked at Qi Xingyu's deformed body from a distance. The cockroach will be poisoned and dehydrated. It will die in a dark place where you can't see. The words that Shin Dinghua said on the phone suddenly flashed through Guanshan's mind. The scene in the words was surprisingly similar to the corpse in front of him. He was shocked and then immediately shook his head. What nonsense was he thinking? The person who mentioned the cockroach at the beginning was Guanshan himself. It had nothing to do with Shan Dinghua. That conversation didn't happen for no reason. There was nothing suspicious about it. It couldn't even be considered a pure coincidence. I must be possessed. I'm always being hunted for no reason. That's why I'm so paranoid. I can't go on like this. Guanshan took a deep breath. It was too depressing. He had to find something normal to do. He took out his phone and found Li Jiying's phone number. Last time, little comrade Shin said that the president happened to be in Liaoshan. He wanted to ask her if she needed help. Guanshan called Li Jiying to ask about it. Although Li Jiying was very surprised that he would come to Liaoshan, she naturally agreed to help. Li Jiying told him a location. "You can get off at this intersection. This side road is inconvenient. I'll pick you up." "How can I? It'll be more troublesome if you get lost." "That's settled. Remember to bring your daily necessities. We'll contact each other by phone." "Okay. Sorry to trouble you." Guanshan put down his phone, then asked Sun Han for authorization and found the person in charge of the logistics of the Noon Brigade. He felt that it was time for him to get some supplies. The person in charge asked very kindly, "Is there anything I can help you with?" Guanshan coughed twice, showed his professional smile, and said, "Do you still have bandages and disinfectants for the emergency medical center in your base?" The person in charge nodded. "Yes, how much do you need?" Of course, they had a lot of backups in case of emergency. If the medical department needed it, sometimes the ability users would come to get it themselves. Guanshan said, "Is a car okay?" The person in charge. PS1. Thank you to the blue-hair girl, PSY01001, HYH125, not cute man, ignorant little Mo, Infernal River of Emptiness, and Tong Tong for their tips. PS2. Asleep. Chapter 159. It was understandable that he needed a large number of bandages, but why did he need so much disinfectant? Even if the Taiyan Formation's disinfectant had been improved and its disinfectant effect was particularly good, it was still just disinfectant. Was he going to use it to drown people? Although he was full of doubts, in the end, the person in charge of the logistics base agreed to provide Guanshan with a car full of bandages and disinfectant. He even seriously asked what kind of car it was and whether it would be completely stuffed or only stuffed into the trunk. Guanshan really thought about it and decided to buy an off-road vehicle first, then move it directly. He was still not sure whether a car full of bandages and disinfectant could be judged as an independent item by the simulator. This was because only things that were judged as items during the simulation process could be put into the backpack. Ordinary things could not be put into the backpack, so Guanshan admitted that he was taking a gamble. But even if it was not, it did not matter. When the time came, the independent bandages and disinfectant could still be used. Anyway, there was no upper limit to the amount of HP that the simulator could replenish. With so many 20% and 10%, the sense of security was simply too great. The person in charge said that they did not have that much stock now, although they were just ordinary bandages and disinfectant, because they were too ordinary. When a paranormal went out on a mission, they would either not be injured or at least break an arm or a leg. There would be support personnel on the battlefield to immediately treat them, or they could rely on their own self-healing ability to quickly recover, or some special injuries that could not be treated at all, so bandages and disinfectant were better than nothing. Not to mention, there were also some healing potions that were specially provided for paranormal. They had never heard of bandages and disinfectant being requested alone. However, no matter how strange the request was, it was still a request that had been approved, so they just had to follow it. Guanshan returned to his room to pack his things, then simply lay on the bed and pretended to rest, looking at the settlement interface this time. Game simulation ended. White Valentine, Final boss killed. 1 evaluation level. Protected NPC. 1717 evaluation level. Items obtained. Skill book, shadow clone, *1. Experience book, battle experience, *1. White chocolate, *1. Whetstone, *1 additional. Evaluation level, beyond. Additional items obtained. Reward acquired. Game coins, *30,000. Skill point, *1. Unlocked achievement. Bounty Hunter, accumulated 150,000 game coins. Achievement reward. Receive 1 specific item from the store for free. All rewards have been sent to your backpack. Please check. Calculation complete. Player, please wait patiently for the next simulation. Although the enemy this time is the strongest so far, the reward is still average. It's probably because of Sun Han's help. Guanshan muttered. The simulator didn't say anything, but since the NPCs dealt a lot of damage, the reward must have been deducted. But even so, it's not much different from the last time. If I can get the complete one, forget it. My strength doesn't allow me to do so. Guanshan felt that the best reward this time was probably the free purchase opportunity given by the Bounty Hunter achievement. However, he was not short of money now, and the shop had not unlocked the next level. He had no desire to shop at all. Then we can only look at the other rewards. Guanshan's first concern was the 5th official skill he had obtained. Skill, shadow clone, not learned. Type, active, cooldown, 7 days. Effect, create a shadow clone with half of the original body's attributes, 2 skill slots, and 2 equipment slots. Cooldown will be calculated after death of the shadow clone. Description, another me in the world, although only half of it. Only half is okay. It sounds like a horror story. Guanshan blushed with shame. Although it was only half, his current level was already high enough. Even if it was reduced by half, his attributes were still quite good. Especially after this dungeon, Honi's clone had provided him with a total of 50,000 experience points, allowing him to rise by 1 level. His current attributes were as follows: frowny face level, 16, experience points, 496270000, HP, 8,079. Although the simulator did not provide detailed data, Guanshan had gone to the training area to test himself when he had nothing to do in the base for the past few days. His current strength was almost on par with a top-notch C-class meat-based mutant. Once he got close, he could seriously injure any non-meat-based mutant below B-class with just 1 punch. Even if it was reduced by half, it was still comparable to a C-class meat-based mutant. Not to mention, this shadow clone could be equipped with skills and equipment, making it even stronger. After learning Shadow Clone, I'll give Searing Soul Whistle, Strange Mark, and Soul-Sucking Bell to the Shadow Clone. I'll turn them into ghost-type attacks. This way, I'll be able to free up my backpack and won't be so flustered. Guanshan stroked his chin. I just don't know how to use this thing. I'll have to experiment. Fortunately, the skill's cooldown was calculated after the Shadow Clone's death. It was very considerate, and he had enough time to experiment. In addition, this time, there was another item that he had never seen before. Experience Book, Battle Hardened. Effect, select a target and immediately obtain all of the target's combat experience and skills. Description, at this moment, you are not alone in this battle. This experience book was not a pay-to-win item that directly increased one's experience. Instead, it was an item that could increase one's internal experience or soft power. Speaking of which, until now, I seem to have relied on self-aiming when shooting and rolling in close combat. In summary, it's just a few random shots. It can even be said that I'm crawling around randomly. There's no skill at all. It's all emotion. Guanshan laughed dryly. But to be fair, did a horror game need to be controlled? Was it not being chased by a monster or being chased by a monster? If he was caught, either the monster would die or he would die. There was no other way. It's useful, but how useful it is depends on whether I can find a reliable target. As for who to find, Guanshan felt that he could wait until he returned to Hangzhou and ask his instructor, Xiaolei. He must know many mutants who were very strong in combat. The remaining 2 are consumables again. Guanshan continued to scroll down. The function of white chocolate is when given to the target can't refuse. The corner of his mouth twitched. What kind of ability is this? No, Guan Shan reacted. I can use this item to interrupt the opponent's skills or actions and fight for a chance to survive. Guan Shan felt that he was really witty. The last item, Whetstone, it could add the sharpness attribute to the demon sword. The effect was to ignore defense and directly cause true damage. In other words, if he encountered a psychokinetic ability user like Luo Yi in the future, the protective measures he applied to himself would be ineffective. He could only use his own body to resist the damage. Looking at the description, if this attribute was upgraded again, it would become cut. It could directly cut through all physical objects. I don't know where to find a second, Whetstone. Let's try out Shadow Clone first. Guan Shan shook his head and then removed the soul-burning whistle skill. After the skill was removed, it would become a temporary skill book. Similarly, it could only be stored in the simulator for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, it would be automatically destroyed. Guan Shan then used 1 skill point to learn Shadow Clone. PS1. Thank you for the tip. PS2. National Day off. Why do I still have to attend classes? Chapter 160. That afternoon, Guan Shan received a call from a person in charge of logistics. The disinfectant and bandages he requested had been prepared. In addition, when Sun Han heard that Guan Shan wanted to buy an off-road vehicle as the temporary leader of the base, she waved her hand and simply arranged one for him. In any case, for an ability user of her level, these things were already at her fingertips, nothing more than worldly possessions. Thus, Guan Shan directly received an off-road vehicle filled with disinfectant and bandages. Bai Yi, who had followed him over out of curiosity, knocked on the car door and looked at Guan Shan with a puzzled expression. Are you going to the Middle East to become a war correspondent and sell medical supplies to make a fortune from the war? Get lost. I'm not you, a B-class ability user who's unemployed and idle to take commissions from ordinary people. Guan Shan said unhappily. I'm going to work, and the president of the newspaper office just happens to be in Liaoshen recently. Unemployed, Bai Yi pointed at the things and complained, You're bringing these things for work? You can make at least 10 mummies with them, and they smell like disinfectant. He was very dissatisfied with Guan Shan's words. Besides, I'm not unemployed. I'm still in college, and I have my own detective agency, okay? If it weren't for my high standards of recruitment, which led to the detective agency having only 2 members, would I need to take commissions myself? Oh, Guan Shan didn't comment. After checking the supplies, he closed the trunk and went to the driver's seat. Bai Yi was exasperated. Do you know how many people would break their heads to squeeze in if I, a B-class ability user, let out the word that I wanted to recruit people? But you refused. Bai Yi, of course, clearly remembered what he said in the room at that time. He came every day to invite Guan Shan to join his detective agency. However, Guan Shan had his own work and didn't want to play any detective games. Although Byakuya was indeed a B-level paranormal, he didn't join the 10 formation, so the organization he founded was still a civilian paranormal organization. In the past few days, Guan Shan had asked Shuman Lin about the taboos of superpowered people. He learned that because of the unknown nature of his ability, some people were actually quite afraid of him. In fact, Guan Shan was quite curious as to why no one had caught him and cut him up because the simulator was acting so strange. After asking Shuman Lin, he understood that it was because Xia Lei, who was Guan Shan's guarantor, had a special status. As for how special it was, Shuman Lin didn't know. He would have to ask Gao Yi. Only then did Guan Shan realize that the cosplay girl who looked like a porcelain doll was actually Xia Lei's direct disciple. Even so, theoretically speaking, he still had to avoid contact with non-governmental organizations as much as possible to show his loyalty. Otherwise, his natural trust level would be lower, and it would be easier for him to be suspected when he encountered a situation like Qi Xingyu's. For his own safety, Guan Shan said perfunctorily, Okay, and then, by the way, the 3 brothers in the logistics department have agreed to join my detective agency. Guan Shan. He was in disbelief. You really let them join? Byakuya said matter-of-factly, Yes, I'm a B-level paranormal. How could I not accept an invitation? Not to mention it's just in name. Oh, a member in name. Guanshan suddenly understood. What's with your as expected? No one will join this detective agency expression. No, I definitely didn't mean that. Don't accuse me. Guanshan flatly denied and then skillfully changed the topic. By the way, who killed Qi Xingyu and how did they do it? Do you have any clues? Byakuya was excited when he heard this. Although the other party didn't even leave any traces of energy level reaction, judging from their methods, this person's ability must be conditional. Byakuya said, the first possibility is that it must be in a dark environment. The second possibility is that it must be in a narrow and enclosed space. The third possibility is that it must be a female. The fourth possibility, Guanshan was actually not listening. Compared to the bizarre world of paranormal, at this moment, he was more eager to return to his original job as an ordinary reporter. Mr. Guan, we meet again. This time, I will accompany you. A slightly familiar voice was heard. Guanshan turned his head and saw a familiar face. The person who was sent by Sun Han to accompany, or rather, to monitor Guanshan, was the young man with a nickname Revoke. This young man's real name was Bian Jie, but he was usually called a Jie by others. He was a member of the first echelon under Sun Han and had strong support abilities. For him to be sent to act with Guanshan, it was obvious that he valued the latter very much. Then I'll have to trouble you. Guanshan nodded at Bian Jie and asked him to sit in the front passenger seat. Byakuya looked at him and opened his mouth. You're leaving just like that. What else can I do? Guanshan sat in the driver's seat and closed the door. He looked at Byakuya with a faint smile. As you can see, the back of the car is full. Otherwise, it's not impossible to bring you along. He had seen Byakuya's purpose early on. This kid just wanted to go out with him. Although this person was a B-grade paranormal, he was young and his mind was unusually easy to see through. Okay, Byakuya's expression was very disappointed. He then struggled unwillingly. Actually, I can sit on the roof. I'm sorry. Shuman Lin, who just climbed onto the roof, suddenly spoke. She removed her ability, blinked, and said innocently, the roof is full too. Byakuya, this was F*King ridiculous. How could he forget that there was such a person who had no sense of existence at all? At this point, what else could he say? Okay. I wish you all a safe trip and come back safely. Byakuya waved his hand, his eyes reluctant to part. Guanshan started the car, stepped on the accelerator, and left. The sound of the engine isolated his goodbye in the smoke and dust. Shuman Lin sat on the roof of the car and looked at Byakuya's mournful expression as he left. She couldn't help but want to laugh. She heard that this detective didn't even take a liking to the Tan formation. He rejected several invitations, and his own detective agency only recruited C grade and above. If he couldn't stand it, he would directly scold them. It was rumored that he was very arrogant. However, she didn't expect that after spending a few days with Guanshan, he would immediately become a salesman of the detective agency around Guanshan. Moreover, he was always rejected. What are you laughing at? I'm laughing at his kung fu, huh? Shuman Lin suddenly realized that something was wrong. She turned her head and found a dark shadow-like person sitting next to her, making Guanshan's voice. This shadow seemed to have a layer of filter. It was sometimes blurry due to the poor signal, but she could still make out the outline of Guanshan. Shuman Lin quickly turned her head to look at the driver's seat. She saw Guanshan concentrating on driving and reaching out his hand to make an okay gesture. She turned her head. The shadow clone also made the same gesture. Shuman Lin opened her mouth and was dumbfounded. PS1. Thank you. Oh, no one rewarded me today. I'm sad. I want to eat more. PS2. So, I haven't knocked on the bowl in a long time, begging for monthly votes, begging for rewards, and rolling on the ground begging. Stare. Chapter 161. Shuman Lin's eyes were filled with fear as she looked at the shadow clone in front of her. Anyone would be scared to this extent if there was a shadow that was at least 90% similar to what they usually imagined. If it wasn't for Shuman Lin's mental fortitude, she would have been scared to the point of falling out of the car. Shuman Lin carefully moved back, opened the headset channel, and asked hesitantly, "What is this? Did you get another spirit type Item? Schumann Lin reminded him seriously. If you get a spiritual item in the future and you can't be sure of its function, it's best to get someone to identify it first. Otherwise, there may be problems. Although spiritual items had a wide variety of functions and could provide a lot of help, most of them had some negative effects on people and were also very dangerous. Especially this kind of thing that looked scary. It's not a spiritual item. Guan Shan shook his head and explained seriously, "This is the shadow clone technique. I have full control over it. Don't be afraid." Schumann Lin was stunned, and then thoughtfully asked, "You also learned Ingzhou's ninjutsu?" Guan Shan said modestly, "Just a little bit." Schumann Lin suddenly understood, since there was a record in the file where Guan Shan was suspected to have used European witchcraft, then learning Ingzhou's ninjutsu didn't seem impossible. Schumann Lin felt that Guan Shan was multi-talented, but Guan Shan felt that Schumann Lin was a little stupid. She believed this. Guan Shan was amused. Sometimes he really felt that this exclusive customer service was quite cute, believing whatever he said. But thinking about it, when he was in the restaurant, Schumann Lin, a D-level ability user, was stupefied and had her pistol stolen by him, who had just obtained the simulator. It was not surprising. This kid wasn't very smart. At this time, Guan Shan was also adapting to the existence of this shadow clone. But fortunately, it was the same as the skills he had obtained before. As long as it was in the simulator system, he could basically learn it without a teacher and quickly became proficient. Guan Shan was now doing 3 things at once: driving, chatting, and controlling his shadow clone. If Guan Shan were to describe this feeling, it was like controlling the actions of a character in a game. The intelligence of the shadow clone was basically 0, and there was a certain delay in its vision. It had to rely on a strong thought to move. This thing was probably a toad, poking and jumping. I hope it can operate more smoothly in the future when it's level. Otherwise, with this reaction speed, it can only be used as a meat shield in a real battle. Fortunately, Guan Shan didn't have high expectations of the level 1 shadow clone. He could only look forward to it. Thus, 2 people, one invisible, the other looking like a ghost, squatted together on the roof of the SUV, which was moving as fast as lightning. If a passerby saw it, then it would be an urban legend. The car of the city with the city. Guan Shan asked Bianjia to check the relevant information of the destination. After all, he was a free laborer. It would be a waste not to use him. Although Schumann Lin could check it, Bianjia, as a member of the Noon Brigade, was equivalent to a local bully. If he were to check it, he would definitely be able to find more information. Ajay said from the passenger's seat, "This Cheoning Mountain Baiha village is a key port area. President Li came here 7 years ago as a volunteer teacher. I didn't expect that she could still help to promote here. After all, the attention of charity is far less than that of social hot topics." Guan Shan nodded. Before that, his understanding of the president of his newspaper was that she was a strong woman with a good family background. Even Lu Rue couldn't gossip about Li Jiying's specific background, but at least her family background was comparable to that of Comrade Shun, or maybe even better. Usually, she was not seen in the newspaper company. She was all about social activities, planning, and networking. Only occasionally did she come to inspect the work. Besides being impartial, she was also very efficient. In the eyes of Guan Shan, who didn't know much about his president, Li Jiying was naturally a person who put work first. He didn't expect that she would be so nostalgic. It took almost 2 days to drive from the base to the Cheoning Mountain area. Thanks to the location of the Noon base itself, it was already remote enough. "Here we are. Go up from here, and we will reach Baiha village." Guan Shan pointed to a mountain road ahead. The road was paved with stones and was full of mud, but it was wide enough for vehicles to pass through. Obviously, a lot of work had been done in the past few years to connect the village with the outside world. Guan Shan called Li Jiying first. "Hello, President. I'm at the foot of the mountain." "Russell." The first thing that came from the phone was a noisy static sound, like the sound of a TV signal, not very good. But this sound only lasted for 1 or 2 seconds. When Guan Shan frowned, Li Jiying's voice came. "Hello, Guan Shan. The signal here is not very good. I will come to pick you up later. Send me the location." "Okay, sorry to trouble you. I also brought a temporary photographer to help take pictures. Guanshan took out the camera from his bag, stuffed it into Ajai's hand, and talked nonsense. Li Jing was a little surprised. You are quite considerate. No, this is what I should do. Guanshan politely pretended to be polite. After hanging up the phone, he sent the location to Li Jing and got out of the car to look around. He looked at the mountain forest in front of him. It was already evening. The light of the setting sun dyed everything orange, and it was gradually getting dark. Hey, what is this? Guanshan squatted down and reached out to touch a small stone statue in front of him. This stone statue looked like an oval-shaped stone, and the bottom was wrapped in moss. From a distance, it couldn't be seen that it was a stone statue. But if you looked carefully, you would find that there were vague carvings on it. It felt like there was a huge eye on the head and a pair of wings behind it. Guanshan had a bad premonition. He looked around and found that there were such stone pillars along the road. There were even traces of bowls in some places. It was very likely that they had been worshipped. As everyone knew, in horror genre works, when a combination of mountain village and strange statue appeared, most of the protagonists would start to suffer. Guanshan's mouth twitched. I shouldn't be so unlucky, right? He comforted himself. President Lee taught here 7 years ago. He must know this place very well. There shouldn't be any problems. It should be fine. Out of worry, he asked Ajia about it. Ajai said that he had not heard of any traces of paranormal activity here. These stone pillars should be some kind of spontaneous belief of Baiha village, but he didn't know the specifics. There are no traces of paranormal activity. Guanshan breathed a sigh of relief, but there was still a knot in his heart. Li Jing quickly rushed over, but she walked over. President Li, who had changed into a simple outfit, looked very capable. She didn't have any makeup on, but she was still beautiful. She came up to Guanshan and said, I have almost finished the negotiations, but I am lacking someone to organize the manuscript. I have been busy for so many days, but I haven't taken any publicity photos. You came at the right time. Li Jing strangely said, By the way, I haven't asked you yet. Why did you come to Liaoshan? I remember you asked for leave because you were injured. Guanshan immediately changed the topic. Do we have to walk up? Li Jing shook her head and said, No, you guys drive. I will lead the way in front. It's not very far. My car is up there, but it's a bit troublesome to drive down. We have to take a detour, so we walk down. Guanshan nodded to show that he understood. He returned to the car and started it. He looked at Li Jing in front of him and poked his head out of the window to remind her to pay attention to the slippery road, but he suddenly found that Li Jing's shoes were not stained with mud at all. P.S. Thank you to 310406, blowing me like clouds. Book friend 20200203225331928, and gentle word for their tips. Chapter 162. Because Li Jing was leading the way and the mountain road was steep, Guanshan could only see the lower part of Li Jing's calves, so he subconsciously paid attention to it. Although the mountain road was muddy, Li Jing's shoes were exceptionally clean. It wasn't that they couldn't be clean, but even the edges of the shoes were as clean as new. Wasn't that a bit too much? Guanshan had already learned how to use the headset to open a private channel on the way, and now this channel was connected to Bien Jie and Shumenlin. He calmly raised this point and asked Bien Jie, Didn't you say that there were no traces of ability users? What's going on? Guanshan didn't doubt his own president, but he suspected that he had met another monster who could draw skin. The last one was naturally horny from the return to Unitarian Church. Bien Jie cautiously said, There really wasn't before. When we get there, I'll try again with the energy level detector to avoid alerting the enemy. The performance was indeed a little abnormal, but only a little. There was no telling what kind of high-tech material was used. Guanshan was like a frightened bird, expressing his strong objection. No, check it now. Otherwise, when we get there, we won't just be fighting one monster, but a group of them. Report to the base first, and then immediately detect and prepare for battle. Right now, everything he did was to protect his own life. Horny really scared him. The world of ability users was scarier than simply fighting monsters, so he didn't dare to be careless. Although Bien Jie didn't understand why he used the word monster, his mission this time was to support Guanshan, so he had to listen to him. So Bien Jie nodded and used the fastest and most covert method to operate the device. Guanshan nervously asked, "How is it?" Bien Jie shook his head. "Nothing." Guanshan was stunned, and then asked worriedly, "Really?" Bien Jie took out the device and showed it to Guanshan, pointed at the number on it, and said in the headset channel, 0, the energy level reaction is 0, which means that ordinary people don't have an energy level. If you don't trust me, you can let Miss Lin give it a try. She should have brought her own equipment. Under normal circumstances, after hearing this, Guanshan would have stopped before going too far. However, Guanshan really went to look for Schumann Lin again and got the same result. Only then did he continue to drive towards Baihe village. Bien Jie found it strange and felt that Guanshan was a little crazy. The man in front of him was rumored to be the ruthless man who had single-handedly killed his way through the outer perimeter of the killer bees. This time, he was attacked by Horny in the base, and the latter was disguised as the main force of the Noon Brigade. Although he had Captain Sun's help, the strength of a C-class paranormal who could contend with a B-class paranormal for so long must be terrifying. But now, Guanshan acted as if he was afraid of meeting a psychic. Guanshan's heart was still hazy. Although he might have misunderstood Li Jiying's situation, he still felt that something was wrong. Guanshan trusted his intuition very much. In the previous battles, it was his intuition that saved him several times. Before the simulator was turned on, his intuition would give him a premonition of danger. For example, when he first knocked on the door of Qin Deguang's house, he already had a premonition. Before Li Jiying arrived, Guanshan had already asked his shadow clone to hide in advance, and then went to Baihe village as fast as he could. He also fully understood what it meant to be isolated from the world. The road they took up to the mountain was the result of development. After this section of the road was completed, they had a walk. The mountain road was really primitive. Now the shadow clone was hiding in a tree, observing the whole picture of Baihe village. This village looked even more dilapidated than the Han village that Guanshan had visited before. The whole place was only about the size of a school field. The mud walls were short houses, and outside the walls were piles of wheat straw and firewood. There was even a pigsty. There was nothing related to modernity, and the electrical equipment was even more ridiculous. It was hard to imagine what this place was like 7 years ago. In addition, the villagers' clothes were also very, very simple. They should have made their own clothes. Coarse linen clothes, the style was very simple, but occasionally, children would be seen wearing modern clothes that did not fit, giving people the illusion that they had transmigrated. In the corners of the village, there were also stone pillars that he had seen before. These places were even more obvious. Indeed, people often worshipped them. There were bowls, plates, and half-burned incense. The shadow clone looked around and did not find anything special. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a person who seemed to be the village chief talking to another adult man. "Is everything ready? This is the biggest event I've organized since I took office. We must do it well, beautifully, and without any mistakes, understand?" "Understood, understood. Village chief, don't worry, everything is ready. But that foreign teacher Li, you still need to ask me about this? Can't you just beat around the bush like before? Do you have any eyesight? I was just thinking." She promised to advertise the village, build houses, and build a primary school. "What? You're greedy for this. Do you want to go out? Don't forget our mission." No, I didn't mean that. I wanted to say, is there anything we can use with her identity? It's not to the point of, who doesn't know how to draw empty promises? She's just a volunteer teacher. How big of a background can she have? There will be new ones coming in a few days. Hurry up and deal with everything. Otherwise, how are we going to explain to the Oracle? Okay, don't worry. After it's done, there will be plenty of benefits for you. These two people muttered for a long time. Guanshan could only tell that one of them was called Bien Dian, the village chief, and the other was called Bien Jiang, the village chief's son-in-law. The people of Baihe village all had the surname Bien. They were preparing for something very important related to their traditional beliefs. They even planned to reject Li Jiying's help because of this. It was also possible that they wanted to do something to Li Jiying. But with just a few words, Guanshan could not make a judgment. But since he was here, he would definitely not let these people do anything bad to the president. What was worth paying attention to was the appearance of an oracle that they mentioned. This character should be a person. Every time, the oracle would come to check on the results of their work. Who is this person? What is Baiha village doing? Guanshan had this question and stopped the car. The mountain road in front of him was already too wide for cars to enter. If he wanted to go forward, he would have to get out of the car. Similarly, he could see Li Jing's car parked here at the intersection. After Guanshan got out of the car, he saw that the car was covered in a layer of dust. It seemed to have been left for a long time. He stretched out his finger and touched the thick layer of dust. Just as he was about to ask Li Jing, he saw that the latter had already walked a long way. She waved at them at the intersection and turned around and disappeared around the corner. Guanshan was surprised. She left so fast? He was worried about Li Jing's safety and quickly followed. PS1. Thank you 310406. Salted fish fell into water. So expensive. 20 yuan. Men are not cute. Happy swimming tips. PS2. Cold medicine is really hypnotic. Chapter 163. Guanshan naturally wouldn't foolishly chase after them. The shadow clone was still in White River Village. He could just observe the situation from the shadow clone's point of view. When they arrived at the village entrance, they immediately attracted the attention of the nearby villagers. Some of them who were further away immediately put down the things in their hands, turned around, and ran away. It seemed like they were going to inform the others. As for the rest of the people, Guanshan could feel a deep sense of xenophobia from their vigilant expressions and flickering eyes. Compared to the Han village that had already been developed, this kind of village that was truly isolated from the outside world was truly a place that could be described as a remote and unruly place. Although this was more or less biased, wasn't the so-called rustic and unruly something like this? Soon, a few people came up to welcome them. Among them was the village chief Biandian that Guanshan saw through the shadow clone, as well as his son-in-law Bianjiang. You guys are Teacher Li's friends, right? Biandian enthusiastically walked up and introduced. She already told us that you guys are from that newspaper company, right? We have already arranged a house for you guys to stay in Yang's house. It's not easy for city people like you to stay in this small village for a few days. It won't be too late to work after you get used to it. He pulled over a little girl with a ponytail and patted her shoulder. If there's anything, just tell Yang. She's quite careful and sensible. The village chief's appearance was almost the same as the simple mountain people that he usually knew. He had dark skin, a short but sturdy figure, a simple and honest smile on his face, and his somewhat awkward Mandarin with a heavy accent, all of which were very amiable. If Guanshan hadn't heard this person and his son-in-law's sneaky and secretive appearance, he really would have been fooled. However, based on the previous stories, this Biandian didn't seem to know that Li Jing was the president of the newspaper company. He only knew that she used to be a volunteer teacher. He didn't know if President Li was deliberately hiding it. Guanshan also revealed a sincere and ignorant smile and asked, "Uncle, are you the village chief here?" Biandian nodded yes. Guanshan asked again, "Then do you know why we came to White River Village?" Biandian was stunned for a moment before he nodded. "Isn't it just to publicize the news about the poor areas? We all know that. In the past, there were often people who came over." Guanshan shook his head and said seriously, "No, this is just one of the small goals. Before we became Teacher Li's friends, we were a geological exploration team belonging to the country." Even Bianjie and Lin Schumann were stunned when they heard this, let alone Deng Dian. "We're still doing this. How come we didn't know?" As a reporter, being flexible and changing one's identity was a necessary skill. Guanshan's expression didn't change. "This time, we came here because the country found that there may be a large amount of coal hidden in the geological conditions of this place. They wanted to develop it, but they found that there was a village here. So if there are really resources, you may have to respond to the national policy and migrate." Biandian was not immediately intimidated, but he was a little skeptical by this long string of words. He quickly said, "We can't move. We have lived here for generations. How can we move?" Guanshan softened his tone and coughed twice. "I said if If there are really resources, then we have to move. If there aren't, then we don't need to. Didn't the country send our team here to find out if there are resources? He pulled a Jia next to him and introduced, "Oh, right, my name is Guan Shan, and this is the geological expert in our team, Mr. Stephen Zhou, who returned from abroad." Because there was no guarantee that Li Jiying had already said his name and identity, Guan Shan told the truth. However, there was also a tool. Bian Jie was thin and tall. He looked very weak, and he was wearing glasses. At first glance, he looked like an intellectual. Jian nodded blankly, but in fact, he was confused. It was not that he couldn't understand why Guanshan did this. No matter what identity he had, it was to get information. However, he was too damn good at it. He could lie so smoothly without any obstacles at all. Guanshan also specifically instructed in the earpiece channel, "Cooperate. There must be something wrong with this village. Since it's sealed off from the outside world, any problem can only occur within the village. As long as we tell them that they might move away, something will definitely be exposed." Since President Li did not have any abnormalities, perhaps the ominous feeling came from the village itself. However, it was also because Guanshan said it so seriously that Bian Jian immediately panicked. He stammered, "It's death. Mr. Zhou sure deefen, this is not that we don't believe you, but we are all honest people. We can't just believe whatever you say." Guanshan took out his tan formation certificate, which was the same as the one Xiaolei showed him, used to scare people, and waved it in front of Bian Jian. Guanshan said in an arrogant tone, "See? This is the seal of the central government. It's a confidential organization. Those who know understand. Those who don't know, it's useless to tell you." Guanshan learned from Jiang Xian from his arrogant and superior attitude. Anyone who saw him would feel that he deserved a beating. It had to be said that his attitude was indeed superior. He went from half believing and half doubting to believing it. He looked at the document a few more times and nodded his head and bowed. "So that's how it is. Then how long do you want to investigate here before you get the results? We can cooperate." Guanshan pondered for a moment and said, "Not long, at most 3 days. We are a professional team, so we won't disturb you for too long. You can live as usual. Just find someone who is more familiar with the mountains to accompany us to take a look." Bian Jian turned his head and looked at Jiang Xian. He rubbed his hands and said, "My son-in-law has been a hunter for decades. He is very familiar with the mountains. When the time comes, let him take you there." Guanshan nodded. "Okay, then the accommodation will be arranged as before. By the way, where does Teacher Li live?" Bian Jian rolled his eyes slightly and said with a silly smile, "It's next door to Yang's house. But she's been very busy recently. She often goes to the houses of the students she taught before. She also runs into the mountains. You may not meet her." "Not meet her? We were all brought in by her. I think she is hiding from you, right? She didn't even tell you when she came back." Guanshan muttered to himself. After a while of feigning civility, he followed the little girl named Ayang to her house. The little girl didn't talk much. Her face was dirty, and her eyes were black and white. She looked like she had some intelligence problems, but she could understand basic logic. When she reached home, she shouted, "Mother, I brought someone here again." Not long after, a clumsy rural woman came out and helped them carry their things. Guanshan looked around. It was a dilapidated house with a few chickens and ducks in the yard. Feces and soil were mixed together, and the smell was really unpleasant. However, Guanshan was trained by the simulator after all, so this level was not enough to make him frown. And from the perspective of the shadow clone, Li Jiying was indeed behind the house next door, squatting and talking to a little boy about 3 or 4 years old. Guanshan put down the things and walked to the back of the house next door. He squatted down beside Li Jiying. Only then did he realize that the little boy's lower body was disabled. He was tied to a wooden board and could only walk with his hands. "This is..." Li Jiying turned to look at him and sighed. "His name is Ba Ping. He is the child of one of my students." Guanshan was stunned. "Your student," Li Jiying said faintly. 7 years ago, among the students I taught, the oldest was only 10 years old. PS1. Thank you, 310406. You meow. Old raccoon of instant noodles, ominous omen, Lily in the fog, Xie Xiao Shu, Great old Dominator, A for their tips. PS2. My cold is finally getting better. Chapter 164. Guanshan did some calculations and found that the student might have given birth to the little boy when she was 13 or 14 years old. Although he knew that such a phenomenon would happen in remote, mountainous areas, it was still hard to accept seeing it with his own eyes. Guanshan couldn't help but ask, "What about his mother? That student. Does she live next door?" Li Jing shook her head and pointed to a hill behind them. "She lives there." Guanshan was stunned. He looked over and saw a dense forest. He could vaguely make out a muddy path. He was even more incredulous. Alone? Is there no one in the village to take care of her? "It's not just her." Li Jing retracted her hand and whispered, "There are many people like her. After giving birth, they all live there and never return to the village." Guanshan was puzzled. Why? Li Jing thought for a moment. Probably because they don't want to come back. The people here only want them to give birth. She smiled bitterly. "The reason why I want to promote this place is mostly because I taught here 7 years ago. I want the children here to receive a better education. But now that I've come back, I realize that I may have come a little late. Come to think of it, such a remote village is far away from the Emperor. No one cares about it all. How could it really do what we planned back then and do according to our plan? The resources that have been donated over the years have most likely been wasted." Li Jing sighed. "I was too naive back then. It's never too late to mend the pen after the sheep is lost. Aren't we here now?" Guanshan comforted her. His eyes returned to the disabled little boy who had been silent all this time. "What about him? How did he become like this?" In addition to the little girl called Ayang, who was obviously mentally handicapped, the rate of children in this village seemed to be a little too high. Li Jing touched the little boy's head, and her face softened. "An accident. An accident." Guanshan frowned. "Why do I feel that it's not an accident?" Li Jing said. "At least that's what the people in the village said." Guanshan suddenly stood up and said, "President, wait a minute. The friend I brought here this time is not only good at photography, but also a medical major. I'll ask him to come and have a look." Li Jing's expression was subtle. "Your friend is quite versatile." Guanshan gave a thumbs up and said without changing his expression, "Of course, he's omnipotent." Although Ajay and Lin Schumann were not medical professionals, after all, they had rich combat experience. Whether this kind of injury was man-made or natural, they should be able to judge. Guanshan ran to the next door and asked Ajay. The latter readily said that there was no problem. As a paranormal who only knew how to cancel, of course, Ajay had to learn more battlefield skills to better assist, including the most basic medical ability. On the battlefield of superpowers, 3 people's abilities is worth of 3 people's worth of them. Guanshan led his men to the back of the house, only to find that Li Jing was gone. At this moment, he received a QQ message from Li Jing. He took it out and had a look. "President, I have to go into the mountains to see my students. If you find anything, tell me online." This smiley face is really a bit retro. It's also good for treating cervical spondylosis. Guanshan couldn't help complaining about Li Jing's ancient characters. Then, she thought of Comrade Little Shun, who was far away on the horizon. Comrade Little Shun, who always liked to send cute emoticons, wondered what he was doing now. Although he had just called Little Comrade Shun not long ago, he couldn't help thinking of her now. Guanshan shook his head and collected his thoughts. It was already the end of November. He should be able to go back at least in mid-December. They could still be together in New Year's Eve. However, it's over 4 o'clock now. Is it really okay for the president to go into the mountains by herself? Guanshan let the shadow clone go up the mountain road and asked Jia to help check the boy named Ba Ping. The boy didn't speak much until now. He could only make vague sounds and didn't have any vocabulary. It was estimated that there was also a problem with his language ability. After a while, Jia put down the rest of Ba Ping's thigh with a dignified face. It doesn't look natural. Although it's very light, there are faint traces of stitches. It should have been an operation. Sure enough, there is something wrong with this village. Guanshan knew that his intuition would not be wrong. He squatted down and asked Ba Ping softly, "Do you live here?" Ba Ping nodded. "Has your leg always been like this?" Ba Ping nodded again. Your mother is gone. Who is your father? Who has been taking care of you? Because the meaning of this sentence may be a bit complicated, Guan Shan had to make gestures. Li Ba Ping opened his mouth and made an ah sound before shaking his head. Why are you here? The village has prepared a welcome banquet for you. A man's voice suddenly came. Guan Shan stood up and saw Ba Jiang coming from the corner. He said with a smile, I was walking around and met this child. I saw that he seemed to have trouble walking, so I chatted with him for a while. Ba Jiang came over and saw Ba Ping half lying on the ground. He immediately walked over and picked him up. A fierce expression appeared on his face. He reached out and was about to hit him. Why are you running around again? Then he suddenly reacted and patted Ba Ping's back gently. Do you know that it's very dangerous? Be careful that the wolves on the mountain will take you away. Ba Ping shrank his neck in fear and quickly shook his head. Ba Jiang still wanted to speak, but suddenly he felt as if something had pulled his feet and his back was pushed by a force. He leaned forward and was about to fall. Ouch! He subconsciously let go in panic. Then, Guan Shan reached out and grabbed him by the back of his collar. Ba Jiang heaved a sigh of relief. He looked up and saw that Guan Shan was still holding Ba Ping. He looked at him with a faint smile. It seems that your lower body is not very stable. Let me hold the child first. Let's go to the welcome banquet first. Ba Jiang only felt that the two forces were exceptionally evil. For a moment, he subconsciously nodded. Then, he timidly led them to the largest building in the village, the ancestral hall. It was dusk, and the statue enshrined in the ancestral hall could not be seen clearly. However, one could vaguely feel that the outline was very similar to the stone block they had seen by the side of the road. Outside the ancestral hall, tables, chairs, bowls, and chopsticks had been set up. The villagers had gathered in a lively manner, and the village chief, Ba Dian, was sitting at the head of the table. Guan Shan sat down and exchanged a few words with him. He smiled and said in the headset channel, Don't eat too much of these dishes. Did you bring anything like an antidote? Jie said solemnly, Yes, the group is equipped with a universal antidote. It can deal with most ordinary toxins within 24 hours, but it is only enough for 4 people. Guan Shan, for people. Leave one for President Li. It's just right. During the banquet, Ba Dian and Ba Jiang frequently persuaded them to eat and drink. Jie pretended that he was not used to the food in the village, and Guan Shan's face was full of criticism. He vividly reflected the contempt of an upper-class city person. When the guests and host were satisfied and the banquet was over, they returned to their residence again and secretly took the antidote. Guan Shan lay on the wooden bed with his eyes closed, but he did not sleep. It was already dark outside, but Li Jing still had not returned. What was even more strange was that the shadow doppelganger he sent out could not find anyone on the mountain, not even a simple straw house, and Li Jing was nowhere to be found. Where did she go? Could it be that she got lost in the mountains? Guan Shan was suspicious. When he was about to go out and see for himself, he heard whispers. Did they all pour it? Yes, they will never guess that I smear the medicine on the chopsticks and bowls. Hee. Hurry up and solve it, lest something bad happens. During the day, they and Ba Ping were sneaking around behind the house. Maybe they found something. But aren't they from the country? If something happens, will it alarm? As long as they are dead, everything will be easy. The oracle will help us solve the rest. Creak. Guan Shan's door was pushed open. Chapter 165. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Guan Shan raised his eyebrows, but his expression did not change. He lay down and pretended to be asleep. He also told Shuman Lin and Bian Jie to hold back for the time being through the earpiece. As expected, the people who had come were Dian and Jiang, who were full of suspicion. However, although these two people's words revealed killing intent, the simulator was not triggered. It was very likely that the simulator felt that ordinary people were no longer a threat to Guan Shan. The simulator expressed its disdain to open a dungeon for such trash. Guan Shan also felt that with his current strength, dealing with a few ordinary people was indeed a matter of a thought. It was better to wait and see what this oracle was. Badian tiptoed closer to Guan Shan's bed, holding a kerosene lamp in his hand. He turned his head and said, "Are you sure they're all unconscious? Don't wake up halfway. That'll be troublesome." Ba Jiang hurriedly nodded. "I'm sure. Because I only applied it on the chopsticks and bowls. I used the most effective one. I guarantee that they won't react, even if I chop off their legs later." TSK. This guy's words were ruthless. It was obvious that he had done this kind of thing many times. Guanshan could not help but frown. The problem in this village was probably more serious than he had imagined. Li Jing had come 7 years ago. At that time, she was still able to return safely, probably because the people in the village had concealed it well. However, in the past 7 years, things had changed. Those students were no longer in the village, and they did not seem to be in a good situation. Who knew how long this place had been hiding evil for? And now, she might have discovered something wrong, which was why she was targeted by these people. They were prepared to kill her and destroy the evidence. Guanshan speculated that the reason why they did not make a move before was because Li Jing had received a call from Guanshan. These people were worried that they might be discovered by the outside world, so they had waited for them to arrive and planned to kill them all together. What kind of secret did this village have that it needed to be filled with human lives? Guanshan already had an idea in mind. The stone pillars and the largest ancestral hall that they had seen in a road indicated that this village had a very primitive and ancient religion. Coupled with the fact that Bian Dian and Bian Jiang kept mentioning the word oracle, it was likely that these things were instructed by the oracle. All in all, the answer was obvious. This village was probably a settlement that believed in a cult. Bian Dian sighed and clicked his tongue heavily. How troublesome. If that woman hadn't discovered that place, we wouldn't have to deal with these two people. It's already hard enough dealing with those offerings. Now there are 2 adults. If there's any more trouble, forget it. I'll just ask the oracle for help. He's always done what he asked for. Liao Jiang came over and helped Guanshan up. He pretended to carry him on his back and asked, "Where are we going? A cliff or a sinkhole?" Bian Dian pondered for a moment and made a decision. "Let's go to the sinkhole. It's raining recently, so the cliff isn't safe." Okay. Bian Jiang carried Guanshan on his back, while Bian Dian carried the thinner Bian Jie on his back. They circled to the back of the village under the cover of the night. After going down a few hills, they arrived at the entrance of a cave. However, Guanshan realized that not only did a strong man like Bian Jiang carry a person for such a long distance without panting, but even Bian Dian looked very relaxed. Guanshan thought to himself, this oracle may be a different kind of ability user from superpowered people. Lil, Invisible, said that in addition to superpowered people, there are some people who can use some other power, such as the qi used by immortal relics like Gao Yi. Such people are rare, but their power can't be detected by the energy level detector. He may have given this power to these 2 people, making them believe that this is a so-called miracle, and thus treat it as a religion. Bian Jian led the way, turned off the kerosene lamp, and walked into the cave. They walked for a long time before stopping. Guanshan let Lil Invisible follow them all the way. At the same time, the shadow clone also rushed over. In the cave, there was a huge swamp, and many stalactites could be seen in it. Bian Dian and Bian Jiang were there. They tied Guanshan and Bian Jie to stones and threw them down. They watched the 2 bodies sink. They even waited for a long time before they felt relieved and left. After the 2 of them left, Guanshan and Bian Jie came out. Guanshan climbed up, turned around, and pulled Bian Jie up. Seeing him cough violently, he asked, "Are you okay?" Bian Jie waved his hand. He was also trained. Just now, when Guanshan noticed that it was a swamp, he asked Shuman Lin to give him a straw. He was coughing now, mainly because the air in the swamp was also very bad. It was probably poisonous, but this was a small matter. Bian Jie's expression was heavy. Many people died here in the village. Are they using living people as sacrifices? I don't think so. Their sacrifice is someone else. We're just unstable factors that they have eliminated. There must be other victims. Now, in their eyes, we are dead people. Observe secretly and wait for the oracle to appear. Then we will know who it is. Guanshan took out his nuclear flashlight and shone into the depths of the swamp. In the dark, muddy swamp, there were all kinds of rotting clothes and corpses floating. Most of them had already become skeletons. Visually, there were at least dozens of corpses. Perhaps more had sunk under the swamp. They just said 2 locations. Only a part of them died here. Bien Jie pointed to several of the skeletons. Those skeletons are obviously small. They should be children. Guan Shan shook his head. More than that, most of the corpses here are children. At this point, the 2 of them had already begun to think about how to catch all the people in the village in one fell swoop. Guan Shan suddenly frowned. I miscalculated. Jie was stunned. What's wrong? Guan Shan took out his mobile phone from his pocket and patted it. He found that it had been soaked in water and couldn't be used. I have to inform the president and let her run. Otherwise, the next victim will be her. Now that I think about it, fortunately, she ran to the back of the mountain. Jie took out his mobile phone and said, use mine. It is specially made and waterproof, but it is full of marsh gas here. The antidote won't last long. Let's go out first. Guan Shan nodded, and the 3 of them walked out of the dark cave together. Guan Shan sent a message to Li Jiying with Jie's mobile phone. Green Mountain beyond the mountains. President, are you still on the mountain? Li Jiying replied almost instantly. President, what's wrong? Yes, I'm still on the mountain. Green Mountain beyond the mountains. That's good. Don't come back. There's a problem in the village. The village chief wants to kill us. President Colon? Green Mountain beyond the mountains. Anyway, don't go back to the village. We're now going up the mountain. Where are you? I know you may be a little scared. I will send you some supplies and leave them there. You can take them yourself. The first thing is to ensure your own safety. President, well, I am, after the 2 of them left, just as they were sending messages. In the cave. At the edge of the swamp called Sinkhole, next to a skeleton, a phone with a broken screen and stained with blood suddenly lit up. A message from QQ woke up the phone that had been asleep for a long time. On the screen, only the person who was called Detective Xiaoguan was answering his own questions. P.S. It is more and more like a horror novel. Don't be afraid. Hold me tight. Conveniently take away the reader's tickets. Chapter 166. Guan Shan did not immediately rush back to White River Village. Instead, he took a detour to the side of the mountain road. This was because he had already asked the shadow clone to pack their luggage and bring it over. He also took a few skewers of dried meat from the village chief's house as one of the supplies for Li Jiying. He hoped that she could stay on the mountain for a few more days. However, Guan Shan still had some doubts. Where in the mountain did those students live? It was really as hidden as guerrilla warfare. If one was not a local, they would not be able to find any traces. Maybe it's to avoid being harassed by the villagers. These students are definitely some of the victims and insiders. It's normal for them to want to stay away from here. It would be strange if they were found so easily. Moreover, I only roughly looked around the mountain road. Guan Shan reluctantly convinced himself and focused his attention on White River Village. As for the whereabouts of Biandian and Jiangjiang, there was no need to worry about them. When Guan Shan pretended to faint on the way, he had already used Kiss of the Red Lips on Bianjiang and Biandian to mark them. Although this item was a little disgusting, the effect was immediate. Now, in Guan Shan's perception, Bianjiang and Biandian's positions were very clear. He could even vaguely feel the environment they were in. It could be said that this was a very thoughtful and intelligent marking function. It would be better if the item's description and usage were not so disgusting. Guan Shan and the others met up with the shadow clone. They took the items and went to the place Li Jiying mentioned. As there were no road signs on the mountain, the location Li Jiying gave was also quite vague. However, when Guan Shan reached a certain place and was about to use Bian Jie's phone to confirm the location, he saw a familiar plain-clothed beauty standing in the bushes by the side of the road. It was hard to see clearly in the darkness of the night. Li Jiying peeked out half of her face from behind a tree. She waved at Guan Shan and frowned. Guan Shan, this should be your multi-talented friend, right? What happened in White River Village? Guan Shan walked closer and put everything on the ground. Then he said in a deep voice, that village chief was up to no good. He drugged the banquet and wanted to kill the 2 of us. We sank into the swamp in the cave behind the village. It wasn't easy for us to find a way to escape. He roughly recounted what he had heard, but skipped over the countless corpses in the swamp. only saying that there might be more victims. Guan Shan and his companion had just sunk into the swamp, so naturally, they didn't have time to clean up along the way. At this moment, his whole body was covered in mud, and he was in a very sorry state. Those corpses had been soaked in the swamp for who knows how many years. The putrid stench from the swamp was enough for him to be an elder of the beggar clan. It was too much of a sacrifice to say that this scene was fake, not to mention that Guan Shan was Li Jiying's trusted subordinate. Li Jiying covered her nose and walked over. She had also brought a bag with her. She took out a bottle of mineral water and handed it to Guan Shan. She said, "There's spring water on the mountain. I'll take you to wash up, and then you can stay in my student's house for the night." Guan Shan took the water and nodded. Then he looked at Li Jiying and suddenly said, "President, did you also notice that something was wrong?" Although Li Jiying's reaction was a bit surprised, she was still a bit too calm. Although President Li's work ability was strong, and her character was meticulous and steady, it didn't mean that she could act as if there was a car accident on the side of the road when encountering such a life-and-death situation. When Guan Shan first activated the simulator, he was scared shitless. Facing life and death directly was often much more difficult than imagined. That was why Guan Shan asked this question. After all, Guan Shan and his companion had vaguely mentioned that it was because that woman had found a certain place, so she was so anxious to kill the two of them. And now it seemed that it was most likely referring to Li Jiying. As expected, Li Jiying nodded. She lowered her eyes and led the way in front. She sighed and said, "I didn't notice that something was wrong. You should have noticed that the children in this village have a very high rate of disability. In fact, it wasn't like this 7 years ago." She recalled and described, "At that time, I was only a university student. Because the school organized a volunteer teaching, I signed up. But due to family reasons, I only taught here for half a year with a few classmates. The conditions were very difficult, but I can still remember the days when I was with those children. I can still recite every name of theirs." Li Jiying took out an old photo from her pocket and turned around with a smile. "Here, this was a photo taken at that time. After so many years, I'm used to seeing those flattering faces and two-faced faces. I always miss the smiling faces of these children." Guan Shan took the photo and shone it with the phone's light. There were dozens of children in the photo, all dressed in shabby clothes. Li Jiying, who looked even more youthful than she was now, was squatting in the middle, hugging two children next to her, revealing a warm smile. Compared to the majestic and mature woman now, this Li Jiying was another side of her that had never been seen before. Those children's faces were also filled with pure and simple happiness. Guan Shan thought that he should be considered as one of Li Jiying's people, so he struck the iron while it was hot and praised, "President, after so many years, you don't seem to have changed. I don't think there's much to miss." Women, especially Li Jiying, who was almost 30, although she said that she missed the smiling faces of these children, most likely she was also missing the past when she was young. Li Jiying turned around in surprise. "Now you know how to praise people. Why didn't you know how to flatter people before? When I saw you ridiculing Jiang Xian, I thought you didn't know how to please the leaders." She said a little mischievously, "That girl from the Shun family seems to have a good relationship with you. Won't she be jealous?" It was obvious that Li Jiying's mood had improved a lot. This sentence was purely a tease. Guan Shan was a little guilty, but he was still stubborn. "Little comrade Shun is not that petty. It's just a few words of praise. It's nothing." Li Jiying couldn't help but smile and continued. 7 years later, "It's not like this." She looked at the dark forest in front of her and whispered, "My students are all here, and most of the children they gave birth to are disabled. They were handed over to the villagers to raise. I knew there was a problem at first glance, so I secretly investigated." Guan Shan couldn't help but ask, "And then?" Li Jiying said, "Then I realized that, in fact, such a small and backward village, it's impossible to have so many children. They don't have the medical ability, and they don't have the economic ability." And coincidentally, not long before I came, I saw a missing persons notice when I was sorting out some information in newspaper. The little girl in the notice was born with mental retardation. Maybe you have already seen her. Guanshan opened his eyes wide and instantly understood. It was the little girl called Ayang. That girl was a missing person, which meant that she was not a native of Baiha village. Li Jing suddenly stopped and said, "We're here." In front of them was a shabby wooden house. It was surrounded by all kinds of branches and grass. It was also on a very remote road. If it wasn't for Li Jing leading the way, they might not have been able to find it. Guanshan walked around and found the door. He pushed the door open to take a look, but found that the inside was densely covered with cobwebs. It didn't look like a long-term residence. He was about to ask, but when he turned around, he found that Li Jing had disappeared. Chapter 167. Guanshan was shocked and took a step back, looking at Ajie, who was one step behind him in horror. At this moment, Ajie's face was also filled with horror, as if he had seen a ghost. But in fact, wasn't this just a ghost? Li Jing was a living person, but she disappeared in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. If this wasn't a ghost, then what was? The two looked at each other and didn't dare to act rashly. Encountering such a strange thing in the middle of the night in the wilderness, even if they were ability users, they couldn't help but panic. Guanshan's eyelids twitched, and he immediately asked Shuman Lin in a panic, She. How did she disappear just now? Guanshan was very scared. He knew there was a problem. From a moment he noticed that Li Jing's shoes were not stained with mud. He felt that there was a problem, but Bianjie repeatedly assured him that there was no energy level reaction, so he believed that the president was a normal person. And along the way, Li Jing's behavior was also normal, and she knew everything that Guanshan had experienced in the past like the back of her hand. Could it be that the one who had been in contact with them wasn't President Li? When Guanshan thought that he seemed to have been walking with an unknown existence, he felt a chill run down his spine, and his heart was even colder. If this wasn't President Li, then where was the real President Li? Could it be that she was already killed? And their whereabouts? Were they also under someone's surveillance? No, it was the best idea that it was an ability user, but what he was afraid of was that it was really a ghost. Shuman Lin was already a bit immune to Guanshan's terrified expression, and her voice was also a bit shaky, but she quickly calmed down. You were walking in front, so you didn't see it. She turned around and smiled at us, and then suddenly disappeared. Guanshan was bewildered. Looking at the gloomy and dark environment, he felt as if there were ghosts coming out from everywhere. Why did she smile? Was it scary, or was she mocking us? Why didn't the simulator work at this time? Guanshan would rather fight monsters in the simulation than see ghosts in reality. Furthermore, didn't that mean that the president was already dead? This turn of events was too sudden. For a moment, Guanshan's emotions were complicated. He didn't know whether to be afraid, angry, or sad. Shuman Lin comforted her. That's not it. It's just a very ordinary faint smile. It gives people a very warm and peaceful feeling, and it's quite pretty. I don't think President Li has any ill intentions. He just wants us to come here, right? Ajia also came back to his senses. He wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and immediately took out the energy level detector. But this time, the result was unexpected. All of them, Ajia raised his head and looked at the wooden house in front of him. He was sweating profusely as if he saw a weapon covered with the fingerprints of a murderer. Inside and outside this house, there are all kinds of different energy reactions, and it's a recorded energy level reaction. Energy level reactions were like DNA. Everyone had their own unique frequency, but it was very difficult to analyze them in depth. Usually, they would just compare them on the spot. Only a few special ability users who were focused on by the Taiyan formation would be directly recorded on the energy level detector. In other words, the person who left behind an energy level reaction here was very likely to be a major criminal. Phew, there's an energy level reaction. Guanshan heard this and was slightly relieved. At least it was a human. Jia turned around and looked at the road they came from. He shook his head, but there wasn't any on the way here, nor at the door. This means that President Li might have used some other form of power. He looked at Guanshan. It's also possible that it wasn't President Li at all. No matter which possibility it was, the possibility of Li Jing being alive was very small. After all, the real President Li was just an ordinary person. Guanshan was speechless. The president, who was just joking with him a moment ago, said that she might be dead in the blink of an eye. He still couldn't accept it. Guanshan turned his head stiffly and turned on the flashlight. He shone it into the wooden house. Anyway, let's see if there are any clues in this wooden house. Okay. Shuman Lin carefully looked at his face and sensed that he wasn't in a good mood. Guanshan tried his best not to think too much. He walked into the wooden house and whispered, "If what the president said is true, then Ayong isn't from White River Village. Even the children in the village, both the past and present, might not be from White River Village either. They are missing persons and also human traffickers." Guanshan looked at the iron rings, chains, and hooks in the wooden house that were obviously used to detain people. His face turned ugly. If that's the case, then why is the disability rate of the children in the village so high? And why are there so many children's skeletons in the swamp? Most of the people in the village used these abducted children as sacrifices. When they lost their value, they threw their bodies into the swamp or threw them off the cliff. In the past few years, if there were any outsiders who found something wrong, they were dealt with as well. How cruel and vicious. Counting from the time when Li Jiying was teaching, it had been a full 7 years, or even more than 7 years. In the swamp, under the cliff, who knew how many skeletons were piled up? Shuman Lin silently clenched her fists. Ajia looked at the detector in his hand and said, "I might know what they used these children for." Guanshan frowned. Didn't this village believe in a cult and use them as sacrifices? Ajia shook his head. There are 2 sources for these energy level reactions. The first one is a C-class space ability user, Thief Zhang Heping. He is a criminal who is famous for stealing. His ability is large-scale, fixed-point teleportation. This should be the reason why there are no energy level reactions in other places. These ability users come and go directly by teleportation. Moreover, there is only one point, which is very hidden. Guanshan felt that this ability was a bit familiar. He tried hard to recall and remembered that in the second instance, the experimental boy named BK had a very similar ability. And the other one, Jia looked at Guanshan. It's Drone 1. Guanshan and Shuman Lin were shocked. Killer bee? That's right. Ajin nodded with a solemn expression. Among the killer bee, one of the only 2 A-class ability users, Drone 1, the brain development ability user. He also felt that it was very unbelievable. Now, almost 2 Earth Branch brigades have been dispatched, and a Heavenly STEM member has also joined. They are all besieging the Killer Bee headquarters, which should be in the west of Hangzhou. Why would they go to Liaoshan, which is thousands of miles away? Guanshan was also a little confused. He had been communicating with the 3-man team of the Yohao group these days. Naturally, he knew that they were now busy hunting down the remaining half of the Killer Bee. As long as these people were dead, the Killer Bee would only exist in name. The remaining low-level ability users were nothing to be afraid of. The only thing left was to find the Queen Bee. But now, the Drone 1 who invented sublimation sugar was suspected to have been entrenched in this small mountain village in Liaoshan for at least 7 years. Guanshan suddenly looked up at Lin and Bian, his pupils constricting. The oracle mentioned by Bian, could it be him? PS1. Thank you, Meow. It's so expensive. 20 yuan. Book friend 201909060806455152. Crane 7. This book is very good. I support your tip. PS2. After a few days of chaotic work and rest, I'm finally back a little. Chapter 168. In fact, even without Guanshan's reminder, Shuman Lin and Bianjia had already realized this point. Bianjia had a feeling of sudden realization. No wonder there haven't been any traces of espers. Espers with brain development wouldn't display their abilities on such a large scale. When they use their abilities, only when their thoughts are active to a certain extent will they leave behind a very subtle energy level reaction. Because it's an internal operation of the brain, if there's interference from other energy level reactions nearby, it'll be even weaker. This was also the uniqueness of the brain development superpower. This type of superhuman had almost no combat power. They would die at the first touch, just like ordinary people. But their existence could create weapons and tools that were thousands of times stronger than their own strength. They were important strategic resources that all organizations had to fight for. For example, the psychiatrist Yang Wen, who died under Guanshan's knife, as a sea-level superhuman with brain development, provided the active agent with special healing effects. A-level superhumans were even more terrifying. If it was just one killer bee, there was nothing to worry about. But because of the A-level Drone 1, over the years, the killer bee had provided the killer bee with countless tools to heal, kill, and increase their combat power. Every time the killer bee went into hiding, it was controlled by Drone 1. Because this organization was in the killing business, they had support from outside the country. This allowed the organization to always be able to move between different areas. If Guanshan hadn't been caught off guard and directly opened a hole, not only killing a large number of backbones, but also contributing a snitch who knew how long it would have taken for them to dig out their nest. From this perspective, although Guanshan didn't participate in this encirclement, there was no doubt that he was the #1 contributor. But now, it seemed that he had once again stumbled upon Drone 1's true nest by accident. Shuman Lin, as a member of the Yohao group who was involved in both sides, was stunned at this moment. Her heart was pounding, scared and excited at the same time. If the oracle here was really Drone 1, and from the conversation between Bian Dian and Bian Jiang, this oracle would come to accept the sacrifice soon. Since Drone 1 was here, it meant that the big stronghold in the west of Hangzhou was probably fake as well. No, it wasn't fake. After all, Yohao Group had really dug out the remaining drones. In addition, there was a large amount of equipment used to produce sublimation sugar and other drugs. They were all in the locations that Lili mentioned. It should be said that this place might be a secret base that even the other drones did not know about. Drone 1's escape route. This way, it's equivalent to us intercepting Drone 1. He's in the light while we're in the dark. Maybe we can make him stay here. This is a truly great merit. I have to inform Mentor Xia and the others immediately. Tell them to inform the higher-ups and send reinforcements. No, that's too slow. Moreover, the higher-ups can only send people to the nearby Wu base. It's better to ask Bian Jia to ask for Captain Sun's help. Shuman Lin's mind was full of all kinds of thoughts, but in the end, they turned into worries. She poured a bucket of cold water on herself. Even if Drone 1 is a brain development esper with a physique comparable to an ordinary person, he is still a genuine grade A. Moreover, he is a cunning old fox. Now that there are only a few of us, who knows if he has other subordinates or if he has other methods? When Shuman Lin was hesitating, Guanshan calmed down and said, "This is just a guess. Maybe he came here before, but the matter in Baihe village is definitely related to him." Shuman Lin immediately nodded. Yes, sublimation sugar has been confirmed to be more effective on children. Zhao Hong's son, who was adopted by us at that time, has now stabilized his ability level at D class. Her tone was serious, so Drone 1 is very likely to use this village to make the villagers give the children to him as the so-called sacrifice. As for whether these children were the villagers' own, or if they were abducted from outside, from what they had seen, it was very likely to be a mixture of both. Bian Jie didn't know much about the specific information about Killer Bee, but after realizing the seriousness of the problem, he immediately contacted Sun Han. Originally, the real Luo hadn't returned yet, so Sun Han had to be there to take charge. But when she heard that it might be Drone 1, she knew that the matter was serious. It was too serious. This meant that Drone 1 might have been conducting experiments under their noses for close to 10 years. If Drone 1 escaped, their Baihe brigade would be hard-pressed to absolve themselves from the blame. Guanshan turned his head and asked, "What did Captain Sun say?" Bian Jie smiled helplessly and said, "She said she will come over now. She told us to wait and not move." Guanshan muttered, "Not move? How can we not move? The sacrifice over there is about to be sacrificed." Although he was relatively timid, if he went over now, it could be said that he would definitely trigger the simulator. But to let him wait in place and hope that Sun Han would come over, leaving the safety of those children to fate to judge, was a great violation of his principles. In Guanshan's perception, after the two of them left, they first went back to Yang's house. They probably found that their luggage was missing, so they walked around everywhere as if they were searching for it. In the end, they gave up. But then they didn't return home, but went to a house in a remote corner of the village. Or rather, in the pigsty below the house. Zhang Jian bent down to drive the pigs to the center of the pigsty, and through a hidden ring, opened a door to the cellar. In such a short time, they had already reached the underground, and in Guan Shan's vague perception, the outline of a group of children appeared. Guan Shan also confirmed Shuman Lin's guess, and the two had already tied up the children and were ready to bring them to the surface. They were in such a hurry. Guan Shan and the others had just arrived, and they killed and sank the corpses that night. It must be because the oracle was about to arrive, and they wanted to offer the sacrifice. Speculating from what he had seen and heard before, these sacrifices were either dead or disabled. As for an A-class Esper with a brain development ability, if he were to ask a few more questions, he might discover some clues and realize that the two people who should have drowned were actually the same kind. It wasn't safe for them to keep hiding. Ugh, Bianji added. Of course, Captain Sun also said that I will listen to you now. If you want to save people, I have to go with you. Listen to me? Guan Shan reached out and patted him on the shoulder and said seriously, Then I say, you don't have to go. After all, she is an A-level arcanist, and your ability shouldn't work on the products of brain development, right? Bianjie hesitated for a moment and asked, Those sacrifices are really children? Guan Shan nodded and told him what he had sensed. They have brought people to the surface. You should be able to see them when we go over later. Bianjie gritted his teeth. I'll go too. They reached a consensus, and Guan Shan rummaged in the wooden house again and finally found something useful. It was a recording pen buried in the soil. Time was tight, and Guan Shan could only put away the recording pen first, and a few of them turned back and rushed down the mountain. Chapter 169. Guan Shan and the others didn't guess incorrectly. The god's messenger, who came to buy a village, was an A-class ability, user codename Drone One. No one knew his true identity, but since the existence of the killer bees, he had always been Drone One and never changed. Compared to the queen bee, who was always elusive, he was more like the leader of the killer bees. But in fact, other than him, no one knew that the so-called queen bee didn't exist. Those orders from the queen bee had always been issued by Drone One himself. As for the queen bee that other people knew, the one that produced the worker bee pendant, the one that gave the name Killer Bee, was in White River Village and not in the so-called headquarters in Hangzhou. Hepping, thank you for your help over the years, but this body seems to have reached its limit. Drone 1 Inch turned his head and said to a middle-aged man next to him. Once again, he was teleported to the familiar ancestral hall of the village. Next to him was the thief Zhang Hepping, who had the teleportation ability. However, the middle-aged man had a dull face and didn't respond. There was a faint crack in the center of his forehead, and there were stitches all around. There was a faint red light, but it wasn't an evil eye or anything like that. It was the corner of a glass bottle that contained some blood. It was as if someone had forcibly opened the top of this person's head and stuffed a glass bottle inside. If Guan Shan and Gao Yi saw this thing, they would definitely find it familiar. This was one of the items he obtained from the exploding head of Worker Bee 1 in the ironworks. At that time, Guan Shan saw this information. Broken blood bottle effect. Increase max HP by 50% for 3 seconds and greatly increase strength. It may cause changes to the body. After the previous effect ends, there's a chance that some of it will be retained. Description: the blood of a certain existence was stored in a special container. Although it has been broken, it still contains some power. The difference was that the blood bottle in Worker Bee 1's head was almost full, but Zhang Hepping's was almost empty. There was only a little left at the bottom of the bottle. In contrast, the middle-aged man's face was sunken in, his eyes were dark, and his face was pale. His eyes were lifeless, and his pupils were dilated. No matter how one looked at him, he looked like a dead man. Drone 1 was a kind-looking old man in his 70s. When he saw this scene, he felt pity. Then, he reached out and pulled out the blood bottle from Zhang Heping's forehead. The bottle was connected to a specially constructed and precise pipe. With this tug, all the connected pipes were pulled out and flung around like a bunch of slender tentacles. The stitches on the latter's face exploded, and his entire face was unrecognizable, revealing his skull and brain. The skull was full of holes, like a piece of cheese. The brain was full of holes and had rotted away. The only thing that truly occupied Zhang Heping's body was the empty bottle. Drone One really felt that it was a pity. He felt pity for such a useful tool. He didn't know how long it would take to cultivate it again. Originally, the child was good, but these wastes were killed by Guanshan during the mission. It was a waste of my efforts to catch him again. Drone One reached out and gently pushed Zhang Heping's body. Zhang Heping's body fell to the ground and instantly withered, turning into a dried corpse. He put the blood bottle in his pocket and looked up at the rough statue enshrined in the ancestral hall. Drone One patted the statue with his blood-stained hand and sighed. So many years have passed in the blink of an eye. When I first saw this statue, I was just a C-level nobody. Now, I've become an A-level criminal wanted by the Special Security Team. He muttered self-deprecatingly. Now, it seems that I have returned to the beginning. But fortunately, after so many years of experiments, the artificial technology of creating psychics is approaching maturity. The success rate on children is close to 25%. Those wastes are gone, but I can still make a comeback. One killer bee is not enough. I will make another cannibal bee and man-swallowing bee until the success rate of this technology reaches 100%. At that time, I will be able to subvert everything and become the creator of a new order. Drone One narrowed his eyes. Although his appearance was old, his bright eyes revealed his ambition. He walked out from behind the statue and stood in the center of the ancestral hall, waiting for the last contribution of White River Village in half a year. Then, he would take the children away and feed them the sublimation candy. If it was successful, he would keep them for brainwashing. If it failed, he would hand them over to the people of White River Village. For so many years, it was like this every year. As for the other killer bees that were being chased and intercepted by the Tan formation in Hangzhou, it was as if they were not his subordinates. They were left to fend for themselves. In fact, this was indeed the case. In the view of Drone One, these people were just his own mercenaries. If they were killed because of their incompetence, what did it have to do with him? As long as he was still there, the killer bees would still be there. He would use the blood of the killer bee to create the next batch of better tools. God's messenger. Jiang Dian walked into the ancestral hall and saw the old man standing there with a smile. He immediately knelt down and cowed out. First, he muttered some words. His words were fanatical, and then he said in a trembling voice, "God's messenger, you are finally here. I have prepared the sacrifice. Please accept it and continue to bless White River Village." He waved his hand behind him, and Jiang Jian walked in with more than a dozen children of different sizes. Drone 1-inch looked at the dazed and groggy children. He walked over and used the remaining blood in the glass bottle to touch the children's foreheads. Seeing that there were no adverse reactions, he smiled with satisfaction. He stretched out his hand and stroked Jiang Dian's head. He said in a warm voice, "You just took office this year, right? If you do well, I will give you a miracle medicine and let you live a long life." Jiang Dian was ecstatic. He kowtowed again and again to express his gratitude. He did not care about the bodies on the ground and the blood on the hands of Drone 1. Drone 1 continued, "How has we gone now? In the sinkhole, there was a sudden movement a few days ago. A few villagers who went to inspect the sinkhole were killed, but then it calmed down. Were there any outsiders?" Jiang Dian quickly lowered his head and said, "There were 3 outsiders. One of them was a female teacher who came here to teach 10 years ago. Her name was Li Jiying. Because she said that she wanted to promote White River Village to the outside world, she was killed. There were 2 other friends that she called over. She said that the government sent them to explore the geology. When the 2 of us just entered the sinkhole, we received your message and rushed over to offer the sacrifice." Explore the geology? Why didn't he know about this? Drone 1-inch raised his eyebrows and asked casually, "What are the names of the 2 people?" were their identities. Jiang Dian answered truthfully. One of them is called Stephen Zhou. He is a geologist. When the name came out, Drone 1 knew that it was a fake name. The purpose of these two people was probably not pure. The other one is called Guan Shan. He seems to be from the government. Drone 1 paused, and his smile suddenly froze. Guan Shan? Jiang Dian heard the fluctuations in the tone of the oracle. He was stunned for a moment and said, "Yes, Guan Shan." He also showed us his ID. Guan as in Guan Shan, Shan as in Shan Shan. Drone 1 inch was expressionless. "What did you say you did to them?" Jiang Dian took the credit and said, "Killed them. In the middle of the night, he used drugs and threw them into the sinkhole. I also waited for a long time by the shore. I guarantee that they are completely dead." Bang! Drone 1 directly slapped him and actually slapped him into the ground. His head was smashed into pieces, scaring Jiang, who was beside him. The old man sneered. "Can you kill Guan Shan? I hope that he will die here." PS1. Thank you to readers 20210209, 170408, 380741, Dan and Bandit, Book Friend 2021100613252545, Charshu Rice, and Lu Meng for their tips. PS2. Please vote weekly. Chapter 170. When Drone 1 heard the name Guan Shan, he knew that the existence of White River Village had already been exposed. This idiot in front of him actually tried to kill Guan Shan and even boasted that he succeeded. If such a cruel and cunning metahuman could be killed by a mere mortal, then pigs would be able to climb trees. And this way, his relationship with White River Village was most likely already known. The only thing he couldn't figure out was, how did Guan Shan find out? They actually came all the way to Liaoshan, a place that was completely out of touch, and directly blocked his way. Now it seemed that his actions were even earlier than Drone 1 teleported here. It was as if he could predict the future and was waiting for an opportunity. "This is really strange," Drone muttered and walked in front of Jiang Ba, who was already paralyzed on the ground. His physical strength is comparable to a B-rank metahuman's, a special type spatial ability that possesses both storage and teleportation, an unknown inherited witchcraft, and a spiritual item of unknown origin. This is already enough to be called unprecedented. Could it be that this person also has a special type foresight ability? Drone 1 Foot had heard all kinds of information about Guan Shan from his own spies. It was precisely this information that caused him to order his subordinates to capture Guan Shan several times, regardless of whether he was dead or alive. Because apart from this, Guan Shan also had another important piece of information, and that was that there was no energy level reaction. If he could use the queen bee's blood to control him and supplement it with a highly matured sublimation sugar, he would be able to add another great general to his great cause. Drone 1 Foot sighed. What a pity, such a talent. It would be even better if he was alive. But since he found this place, then he can only be a dead man. Jiang Ba looked at Jiang Ba, whose head had directly turned into a pile of mud on the ground in front of him, and was scared to death. He desperately retreated and begged for mercy. "God's messenger, please spare my life. Let me go. I am loyal to you, to the Be God." It was Jiang Ba who coveted the things that Teacherly promised and wanted to leave White River Village to go outside. "It wasn't me. It really wasn't me." "Oh, so you guys still have this kind of thought?" Drone 1 was not very surprised. This village had been in contact with the outside world for a long time. It would be strange if they did not have any disloyalty. This place was not his first choice of stronghold. It was only because the queen bee was in the sinkhole that he had to let these villagers who had developed faith in help him. "That's good too. It's been so many years. You've all worked hard." After saying that, Drone 1 reached out and crushed Jiang Fei's skull. Although he was an Esper with a brain development ability, it did not mean that he did not have any combat ability. The modifications he made to his body were no less than the others, and at least half of his body parts had been replaced. Jiang's wails and screams ended with his completely distorted face. His eyes were wide open, and he died with remaining grievances. Drone 1 looked at the 3 corpses on the ground and turned to look at the entrance of the ancestral hall. He sneered, "Still not coming out?" He's quite patient. "However, I heard that although your methods are ruthless, you have a strong sense of justice. I wonder if you can endure until I kill all these good children?" He turned around calmly and reached out to touch the head of the child in front of him. He was about to close his palm. Drone 1 was very confident that Guanshan would come out. Although these children had been controlled by the blood of the queen bee, when he wiped the blood, there was no trace of it on the surface. He did not believe that Guanshan, who was willing to sacrifice himself to save others, would not come out. However, there was really no movement. After waiting for about 10 seconds, Drone 1 frowned. Could it be that he was wrong? This Guanshan was not the Guanshan he knew? Impossible. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? Drone 1-inch did not believe it and decided to kill him. He casually threw the corpse to the ground. It seems that he really hasn't come, suddenly. At this moment, a light flashed and a grenade flew out and rolled into the ancestral hall. Although Drone 1 did not expect this, he did not think that a grenade could cause any harm to him. I miscalculated. He did not even care about these hostages. Was this person just putting on a show for the Tan formation? Drone 1 narrowed his eyes and grinned. Interesting. This Guanshan is so considerate. His thoughts stopped here. He saw the grenade explode on the ground. The shockwave was surprisingly small. It only pushed the children to the ground, and there were only some superficial wounds. However, what followed was a series of leaping lightning bolts. What? Zila dash. Guanshan was indeed hiding at the entrance. When he came, he knew that he was one step too late, because in his eyes, the world had changed. Scene scanning completed. Generating horror game. Generated horror game. Old corpse in mountain. Plot loading. Please wait. Plot loading completed. It's night, windless. You came out to travel and stayed in a mountain village with your companions. In the middle of the night, you encountered an unexpected disaster. You were lucky enough to escape. When you were about to escape, you inadvertently saw the village chief sneaking into the ancestral hall. Countless strange phenomena came one after another, and behind the statue is... Asterisk note. Only by killing the final boss can this simulation be completed. Did your simulator learn how to King break chapters? Guanshan was speechless as he looked at the plot description. It was within his expectations to trigger the simulation, but it was a bit too much to only explain half of the loading plot. Tell me, what the hell is this boss anyway? The ancestral hall that appeared in front of Guanshan was no longer the shabby, but normal-looking ancestral hall. It was as if a layer of ghost filter had been added. The outside of the ancestral hall was faintly floating with green ghost fire. The bricks, tiles, and wooden beams were illuminated with a gloomy atmosphere. The interior of the ancestral hall was emitting a strange red light because of the red paint in the hall. It was like a horror film set from the 70s and 80s. The statue, which was originally a large stone block, was now wrapped in a layer of terrifying mucus. The oval-shaped stone block looked like a living egg, with blood vessels sticking to it and moving up and down as if it was breathing. In the center of the ancestral hall, there were 3 corpses on the ground. They had become part of the background. One of them was unknown. It was most likely Zhang Heping who was responsible for the teleportation. The remaining 2 were Biandian and Bianjiang. In addition, there was a pile of child-sized puppet bags. That's right, those children who were supposed to be victims had now been determined as monsters by the simulator. Egg, puppet, LV, 4, HP, 200, description, a puppet parasitized by an unhatched egg. The strings are in the hands of others, and they can't control themselves. These puppet bags were like the puppet Billy from Saw. Their faces were painted pale, and there were 2 glaring red spots. Their eyes were dull, and their clothes were the kind of simple costume that made them even more terrifying. The biggest boss was the rotten zombie that was standing in the center, holding one of the puppets. The zombie's body was almost rotten, but under the skin and flesh, there was a metallic luster. The dislocated metal structure of the skeleton and the blood-red mechanical eyes made this zombie near the peak of the uncanny valley. At this moment, its information appeared in front of his eyes. Boss, string handler, mechanical zombie, LV, 35, HP, 50,000. Description: controls the string handler, or is it controlled by fate? PS1. Thank you to Starry Sky Ias, Not Cute Man, Lily in the Fog, Imperial Inspector 66666, and Tentacle Seedling Bed for the reward. PS2. I adjusted my schedule to be lonely. I still can't sleep. Help me woo-woo. Chapter 171. Level 35. According to past experience, levels 1 to 10 are D class and below, levels 10 to 20 are C class, level 20 is B class, and level 30 to 40 is a class. He really is Drone 1. Guanshan hid outside the ancestral hall with the help of Secret behind the door. He took a deep breath and didn't dare to act rashly. This was a genuine A-class. Even if it seemed to be only one person, this guy, as a brain development mutant, must have many tricks up his sleeves. It was impossible for him to come here unprepared. What's more, this guy had a total health of 50,000, which was obviously a very strange number for a person who relied on intelligence to survive. This meant that he must have modified his body. This was also very normal. After all, the person in front of him was the top researcher who invented sublimation sugar. From what Guanshan learned from Schumann Lin, even the Tin Formation didn't want him to die. Instead, they wanted him to continue their research and development. Judging from the appearance given by the simulator, he was probably the kind of mad scientist who replaced his body parts with machinery. Wait, machinery? Guanshan narrowed his eyes and suddenly remembered that there was an item in his backpack that had accumulated dust for a long time. Electromagnetic pulse disruptor. Effect: causes shock wave damage and causes electronic equipment within a 50-meter radius to fail. Description: is using EMP on a robot considered murder? That's right, E.M.P. Guanshan directly took out all 3 EMP grenades from his backpack. Although I don't know if the mechanical device on this guy is electromagnetically driven, I have to take a gamble. What if I can make his parts fail? As long as I can weaken his combat power a little, it will be a success. Guanshan waited patiently. Drone 1 was still trying to trick Guanshan, but unfortunately, although Guanshan also felt pity and anger for the children, now that the simulator had judged him as a monster, it meant that there was no hope. Not only did Guanshan not go out, but he also saw this as a good opportunity. Drone 1 must have mistakenly thought that Guanshan hadn't arrived yet. This was the time when he was the most relaxed, which was also the best opportunity for a sneak attack. The old man waited in place for a while. Sure enough, he had a moment of doubt and involuntarily relaxed. Now, Guanshan threw the 3 grenades one after another as if he was throwing pokeballs. The grenade instantly exploded, and in the next moment, with the explosion as the center, huge electric arcs were produced. These electric arcs were white, and like thunder, they spread out in all directions like silver snakes. In an instant, the entire ancestral hall was illuminated. Even Guanshan, who was standing at the door, could feel the hair on his body standing on end and his scalp going numb. A strong numbness spread from his skin to the inside of his body, as if he had passed through a fine electric net. At the same time, from the way his muscles were tensed up, the electric current was probably a little painful. The mechanical zombie that was in the center of the explosion was screaming in pain. The electric current was flowing around its body, and it was unknown which part of its structure was damaged. Now, there were plumes of black smoke coming out of it. The HP bar on its head was reduced by about 1/10 in an instant. At the same time, it was also inflicted with slow and twitching statuses. 5,000 HP with 3 grenades. Is this really an EMP? Whose EMP is the same as the Thunderbolt? The products of a simulator are indeed the best. Guanshan sighed in amazement at how terrifying it was as he swiftly rolled out from behind the door. In an instant, he brandished his demon blade and charged out with explosive speed. His current max-level gravity control allowed him to reach an astonishing speed. In an instant, Guanshan appeared behind the mechanical zombie as if he had teleported. In his field of vision, when he focused, the mechanical zombie had 2 fatal weaknesses. One was its heart, and the other was its brain. Guanshan did not use a gun because when his brain development ability reached a higher level, it might be accompanied by a certain degree of psychokinesis. Previously, he had suffered from psychokinesis from the fake Luo E. Naturally, he would not use the Glock to deal with Drone 1. Guanshan raised his sword and slashed at the zombie's head. Clang! The blade cut through the skin easily, but there was a metal pulp inside. If it was not for the demon's sword's sturdy material, a normal sword would probably have a hole in it. This time, the demon blade left a deep gash in the skull. However, the recoil made Guanshan's hand numb, and he immediately retracted his sword. Roar! The mechanical zombie suddenly turned its head 180 degrees, and its rotten face was facing Guanshan. It was covered in maggots, and the impact was comparable to that of the waiter. Just as Guanshan was shocked, he realized that there was a glaring white light in its wide, open mouth. He took a closer look and realized that it was a miniature cannon. There was an unstable white energy gathering in it, and it was about to be fired. A prompt from the simulator appeared in real time. Miniature plasma cannon, effect, you know it. Description: a villain who does not know how to shoot his mouth is not a good villain. It was a real mouth cannon. F***CK. What kind of advanced technology is this? What year is this that you can stuff a plasma cannon in your mouth? Guanshan was shocked and instinctively wanted to dodge to the side. However, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. The plasma cannon is also an electronic device. I didn't throw those 3 grenades for nothing. It should have lost its effect. Guanshan immediately reacted. F***CK. This guy is trying to trick me. The next moment, the zombie raised its hand, and a cannon appeared in the middle of its palm. Miniature air cannon. Effect: moves the air at the speed of sound, creating a huge impact, causing 3,000 to 5,000 damage. Description: air can also kill. Guanshan only had 8,000 HP. If this cannon was a critical hit, even if he did not die, he would be crippled. Guanshan forcibly stopped himself from rolling. He then raised his hand and moved the zombie's wrist upward by 30 centimeters. Bang! An invisible shock wave spread out, and the roof and beams above were directly blasted apart. Debris, dust, and stones rolled down in a flurry. Guanshan felt his chest tighten because he was close to it. It was as if his chest had been crushed by a boulder. If he was facing the cannon just now, his internal organs would have probably been crushed. However, the zombie's internal structure was unknown. It was able to stand firmly on the ground. Just now, it had only swayed a little. However, the recoil would still affect it. Coupled with the impact of the EMP, the zombie was stuck in place. I have to destroy its weapon first. Guanshan thought quickly. He then rushed out of the ancestral hall under the cover of the smoke. Gravity down? As soon as Guanshan came out, he immediately raised his arm and swung it down. Boom! The entire ancestral hall seemed to have been hit by an invisible giant fist. It caved in from the top and then collapsed, burying the mechanical zombie and the wooden puppets underneath. At the same time, such a huge commotion naturally woke up the villagers of White River Village. The village lights lit up one after another. Ancestral Hall. Why did the ancestral hall collapse? What happened? Be God bless. Be God bless. Why does it seem like there are people there? Guanshan thought for a second. He looked at the NPCs gathered around and made a decision. Go to the sinkhole. The methane there can be used. Chapter 172. Go to the sinkhole. Amidst the sound of the collapse, Guanshan's instructions through the earpiece were immediately transmitted to Bian Jie and Lin Schumann's ears. The two of them had been hiding in the dark just now, so they immediately understood what Guanshan wanted to do. The methane in the sinkhole was not only poisonous, but also extremely explosive. Drone 1's weapon was either fire or electricity, so it would naturally be greatly restricted there. Otherwise, it would be equivalent to suicide. But at the same time, they naturally had to be more careful with their attacks. However, compared to Drone 1, their advantage was still more obvious. Voila! Drone 1 lifted the ruins of the ancestral hall. Many parts of his skin had been completely burned, and blood was flowing out, exposing the muscle tissue and mechanical structure inside. Your reaction is quite fast. It can be used to tear apart the killer bee's body. It is indeed sharp. He patted the dust on his body, took out a syringe from his completely mechanical left arm, and injected it into his neck. The wounds all over his body instantly healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the health bar on the top of his head also recovered rapidly. The supply chain of Xiang Wen's medicine also included the Silhouette Beings network, so the killer bee also had a certain amount of active medicine, but it was not very effective, so it was a stable product. Drone 1 was tricked by Guanshan, but he was not angry. In fact, he even seemed to be at ease. It seems that your awakening is going to be brought forward. He looked at the injured children who were lying on the ground around him. He walked over and fed them a can of sublimation sugar one by one. The sinkhole was full of methane, so it was indeed impossible to use firearms. But Drone 1 never relied on himself to fight. He was just a researcher who had some self-protection ability. Most of the modifications he made to himself were to save his life. Although Guanshan was strong, he was still only a C-class. But now, the sublimation sugar that was almost finished could easily create countless C-class. The ancestral hall collapsed. Quick, put out the fire. It's a messenger. The messenger has arrived. It must be because we didn't sacrifice in time. Be God bless us. These outsiders are really disrespectful. The ancestral hall collapsed the moment he arrived. If I had known this would happen, I would have tied them up the moment they arrived. Their mouths were full of bewitching nonsense. That Biandian even said something about being careful. Look, he's dead now. That's right, that's right. And that Jiang, he thought that he had left the village and his heart was outside. The oracle must have noticed that he was disloyal. But what do we do now? The sacrifice is about to die. Will the oracle punish me for this? The oracle is benevolent. How could he punish someone for no reason? If someone is killed, then that person is guilty and deserves to die. If you don't have enough sacrifices, then sacrifice your own children. That is true loyalty. Now that the village chief is dead, shouldn't we choose someone else? The villagers gathered around, either putting out the fire, worshipping, or whispering to each other. Drone 1 Inch ignored them and watched as the sacrifices curled up in pain, moaning and wailing. Then his eyes lit up again, but some of it was cold, killing intent, and some of it was chaotic madness. Finally, these children stood up shakily from the ruins. Some of them walked in front of Drone 1, while others looked at the surrounding villagers with bloodthirsty eyes. 1, 2, 3, 12 grade DS, 6 grade CS, and the rest are useless. A success rate of 2/3. Not bad, not bad. Drone 1 Inch looked at the energy level detector in his hand and counted them one by one. He nodded with satisfaction. Grade CS were not ordinary grade CS. The complete sublimation sugar, combined with fixed arcana genes, had a high probability of awakening an arcana. In other words, these were all top combat arcanas. He reached out and touched the head of the nearest grade C child. He said coldly, "Go, break that Transformations knife." At this moment, the losers had lost their minds. Just like Zhao Hong and his wife, they began to massacre the villagers. But Drone 1 just put his hands behind his back and followed the children who rushed out through the village. As for the villagers who asked him for help, he ignored them all. When Guanshan arrived at the sinkhole where they were buried, the village in the distance was bustling with noise, which made the place even quieter. When he walked to the cave where the sinkhole was located, he suddenly felt the worker bee pendant, which had been hanging around his neck as an ornament, start to tremble slightly. Guanshan was stunned. What the hell? Why is this thing moving on its own? This item that could communicate with bees was originally used as a scouting tool, but there were not many places where it could be used. These days, it was useful for finding the way in this mountain forest. However, in order to not let it occupy the backpack, he had been wearing it all along. At this moment, he clearly did not use this item, but it had a reaction that it had never had before. Guanshan took out the necklace and looked at it. He found that the bee-like bug that was sealed in the glass container had come to life and was flapping its wings. Guanshan was stunned. Seeing that Drone 1 had not caught up yet, he closed his eyes slightly and tried to use it. The dark eagle-like vision appeared again, and the perception function that could sense other bees in the past did not fail. There was indeed a bee in this place. At the bottom of the sinkhole, there was a huge, wriggling object lying on the ground. It looked like an egg or a pupa, with an oval overall shape and a pair of huge wings on its back. In addition, there were countless feet that were moving, stirring up the sticky swamp around. F***ck. Guanshan suddenly opened his eyes, swallowed his saliva, and could not help but take 2 steps back. The sinkhole in front of him was about 50 meters wide, but the behemoth at the bottom was actually bigger than the sinkhole. What kind of concept was this? 50 meters, about the height of a 16-story building. In other words, if this thing could stand up, it would be a skyscraper. By the way, the height of the first version of Godzilla was also 50 meters. At the bottom of this seemingly calm sinkhole, there was actually such a terrifying thing lying there. And it was still alive. When Guanshan thought about how he'd been lying on top of this thing for a while, and maybe even being stared at by it, he felt that he could not suppress the goosebumps all over his body. Shuman Lin suddenly exclaimed, "The missing worker bee pendant is really in your hands. Gao Yi and the others have been betting on whether or not it was you who took it." Guanshan stared at the surface of the floating bones in the swamp, holding the vibrating worker bee pendant in his hand, and said, "This is the killer bees thing?" Shuman Lin felt strange and said, "Yes." She repeated the information from the logistics team. "This is the killer bees' signature pendant. It is said that it was produced by a mutant with the meat system. This is the child bug. People who have the pendant can sense each other's position. And the person who has the mother bug can control the child bug. What's wrong with you? Why are you retreating?" Guanshan's head was covered in cold sweat. He held the wall and walked back in a panic. "Stay away from this sinkhole. Let's find another place to fight. There was no such thing as a mutant with a meat system. And who could control this mother bug?" The thing in the sinkhole in front of him was probably the killer bee's queen bee. PS1. Thanks to Broken Halberd V Sinks into Sand, WWW, and Maiden Killer Li Yunlong for their tips. PS2. I'm not feeling well. Update a bit late. Chapter 173. Wait, that's not right. Guanshan took 2 steps back and suddenly stopped. He realized that something was wrong. The boss is Drone 1, not this thing below. A question popped up in Guanshan's mind. This thing, no matter how you look at it, is stronger than Drone 1? Even if Drone 1 is controlling it, according to the previous rules, although the boss in the breakthrough mission was a mindless experimental subject controlled by Drone 1, it is stronger, so it is the boss. The simulator will not order things based on status. It will only differentiate between boss and elite monsters based on their strength. Since Drone 1 is a boss, doesn't that mean that this thing can only be an elite monster? What waste of its size, but it is actually a silver spearhead. Only through practice could he gain true knowledge. Guanshan immediately closed his eyes again and returned to that special field of vision. Only in this situation could he be considered to be looking directly at the body of this thing, and only then could he obtain the prompt information. The answer given by the simulator was unexpected. The huge monster below was not an elite monster, and it was not even a monster. It was actually an NPC. Those villagers are not a threat, and I reluctantly agree that they are NPCs, but this thing is telling me that it is an NPC. Can it communicate? Can understand human language? Guanshan opened his eyes wide and felt that he was messed up in this poisonous wind. Fortunately, the simulator gave him a sentence. Asterisk note, NPCs can be useful assistants. Be careful and talk to them. You may have unexpected gains. Guanshan was speechless. I want to talk to them, but you tell me how to talk to them? But no matter what, this was considered good news. After all, it seemed that the thing below that was suspected to be the queen bee had a chance to help them. Guanshan did not have the chance to study it now, because the real elite monster had already arrived. Bien Jie had already rushed over and shouted anxiously, "Drone 1 has turned those children into metahumans. 12 Class Ds and 6 Class Cs. The difference in combat power is too great. Try to delay them until Captain Sun arrives." Lin Shuman was also shocked when she heard this. She looked a little flustered and carefully said to Guanshan, Let's use the swamp to deal with them first, and then go down the mountain. There are too many people on the other side. The strongest person in the Yohao group was a Class C high leaf. With so many Class Cs appearing at once, Schumann Lin felt a little dizzy. It was very unreal. Even if Guanshan was good at fighting, his best record so far was surviving the pursuit of a Class B metahuman, and that was with Sun Han's help. Since there were so many people facing so many enemies, it was naturally more important to protect their lives and wait for reinforcements. Good. Guanshan naturally agreed with both hands and feet. He was a coward. If he could get help, of course he would get someone help him. Of course, the head had to be his own. Just as he turned around, he saw that the beat egg puppets, which were at most Class 4, had suddenly risen to Class 10, and their title had changed to Young Bee. They let out strange laughter, as if they were being carried by invisible strings. Their limbs were very strange, as they quickly crawled in. Together with the dark and cold light in the swamp, fat intestines was very scary. What was even scarier was that in their open mouths, between the gaps of their eyes and eye sockets, there were insect limbs that were creaking. Just looking at it made one's scalp tingle. At first, Guanshan was wondering if these children could be saved. But now he was so scared that his soul was about to leave his body. They found me. Bien Jie suddenly shouted in panic. Guanshan saw Bien Jie hiding under the stalactite on the left side of the cave. Now, a few of the puppets separated and rushed towards Bien Jie at an astonishing speed. Guanshan took a deep breath and said, Wait and watch me. Follow me. Then, he rushed over as well. Although he was half a step slower, with his current speed, he was still able to surpass the average Class C tank. Even so, he was only able to keep up with the puppet in front. That puppet was a mutant with teleportation abilities. In the blink of an eye, it appeared before Bien Jie. Bien Jie's pupils constricted, but his reaction was not slow. He immediately activated his ability and said, Cancel? ? The puppet was stunned for a moment. Then it suddenly returned to its original position before the teleportation. Raising its head, it met Guanshan's gaze. Guanshan raised the box that had suddenly appeared in his hand. He smiled and shoved it into the puppet's arms and said, This is for you. Something sent by the enemy should naturally be rejected. However, for some unknown reason, an irresistible force caused the puppet to raise its arm and accept it naturally. It lowered its head and found that it was a box of beautifully packaged white chocolates. The pink ribbon gave off a romantic atmosphere. The glaring blush on the puppet's face immediately seemed to turn into a pink color as it put on a bashful expression. This man was so different. In such a dangerous situation, he had made such a shocking move. He had given his enemy white chocolates. His smile was so bright and his strength was so steady. His embrace must be very reassuring. What kind of feeling is this? Her heart was beating so fast that it felt like a little deer was running around. The puppet's empty eyes seemed to emit love. With a perturbed heart, it looked up and saw Guanshan raise his saber with both hands and slash down with all his might. Shua! With a flash of silver light, the puppet's head fell to the ground. The box of white chocolates was still in its arms. It was the white chocolates that he had obtained from the previous instance dungeon. So long as it was given out, it could not be rejected. Experience plus 3,800 Guanshan quickly reached out with his hand and took the box of chocolates. Then, he turned around and shoved it into the arms of the next puppet. The puppet looked at the corpse of its senior that was slowly falling to the ground, and its heart skipped a beat. This man, in such a situation, actually gave a gift while killing someone. How domineering. But why this irresistible gaze seems to be saying, I want you. How can I accept this, Shua? Galilo. Guanshan cut in two and neatly obtained another 4,000 experience. However, he felt a chill for some reason. However, the situation was urgent, and there was no time to think. He picked up the white chocolates again and sent them to the next puppet at a tricky angle. The insect limbs in the puppet's mouth twitched, and there was a strong fluctuation in its heart at this moment. He actually gave me chocolates. How can this be? We are mortal enemies. This incestuous love is destined to be destroyed. Do I have to be like a moth to a flame and seek my own destruction? No, I have my own mission. However, his struggling eyes were so unforgettable that it made people sink. Wasn't the thing that melted the chocolate the fire of love? For him, I am willing to schwa. Guan Shan swung his saber once more, instantly killing off the 3 closest puppets. He also collected 12,000 EXP along the way. These 3 puppets' levels were low, but they were agile, so they rushed to the front. The remaining 3 were already vigilant and didn't dare to rush forward. Guan Shan didn't hesitate because he and Bian Jie had already switched positions and arrived at the entrance of the cave. Guan Shan turned in the direction of the puppets behind him and shot. Bang, boom. The biogas exploded instantly. Chapter 174. Hungry. Gimme. Food. Hungry. The moment Guan Shan fired the gun, he suddenly felt the worker bee pendant on his neck vibrate again, and at the same time, a vague voice sounded in his ear. The way the voice appeared was very similar to the channel of the Mind headset, and it was as if a private chat window had been opened. Guan Shan's pupils shrank, because the voice came from the huge monster under the swamp. Moreover, he didn't know if it was an illusion, but he vaguely felt that the voice was a bit like Li Jiying. Li Jiying's voice was very unique. It was very recognizable. Basically, people who heard it once would not forget it. Moreover, Guan Shan worked under her and had called her countless times. Without thinking too much, Guan Shan took a deep breath and activated gravity control, which was still on cooldown. While dragging them back, he also pushed all the puppets into the swamp. Boom! In an instant, the exploding swamp turned into a raging fire and then ignited even more swamp. The continuous explosion was accompanied by a huge shockwave that spread out in all directions. Dust was swept up, vegetation was swallowed, and the whole mountain was rumbling. For a moment, the mountain shook. The explosion power of the swamp that filled the entire cave was far more shocking than Guan Shan had imagined. Although Guan Shan had already pushed them away, the force of the shockwave coming from behind them was even greater, and they were almost thrown out. But because of this, the next few waves of explosion did not affect them. Guan Shan skillfully rolled on the ground a few times and immediately stood up. Bian Jin next to him was in a very sorry state and had a mouth full of mud. Pei. Bian Jie still felt a little buzzing in his head, and most of his body was broken. But the situation was critical, and there was no time to delay. He immediately forced himself to calm down and said, Drone 1 used sublimation sugar on them, and some of them are still behind. My ability can't work on Drone 1 because he uses technology to attack, so it's not within the range of his ability. I'm injured now, so I'm just a burden. You go down the mountain first. I'll stay here to buy time. Experience plus 7,000, experience plus 3,100, experience plus 6,500, experience plus 2,800. At this moment, Guan Shan's eyes were filled with notifications of his experience points increasing. The marionettes that had been killed by the explosion had all been added to his kill count. These puppets provided him with a total of more than 50,000 experience points, allowing him to level up again. LV 16, LV 17, current experience 16008000 current health points. 8079, 9079 Guan Shan's injuries from the explosion had all been healed, leaving no trace behind. However, it was useless because gravity control had entered its cool-down state, and the mudslide was right in front of them. Unless they could fly, even if Guan Shan could survive, Shuman Lin and Bian Jie would definitely die. However, Guan Shan turned to Bian Jie and shook his head. No, I'm not leaving. Bian Jie was stunned, and then he smiled bitterly. Brother, it's not necessary, right? Now is not the time to be sentimental. Guan Shan had a strange expression. No, I'm not being sentimental. I just found a better way. Rumble. Bian Jie's expression changed. Not good. The mountain is collapsing. The explosion just now must have caused the structure of the mountain to shift, causing it to collapse. When they came in, the excuse they used was that the geology here was unstable but they did not expect it to come true. Of course, how much it was natural and how much it was man-made, they did not know. The mountain above was collapsing at an alarming speed, like a flood covering the sky and the earth. Drone 1 was standing on the other side of the mountain peak, which was what the villagers of White River Village often called the cliff. He looked down and smiled faintly. Using methane is indeed a good idea, but it seems that they did not consider the consequences of causing a large-scale explosion in the mountain. Drone 1 suddenly raised his hand and pressed on the black earpiece hidden inside his ear. He rotated it slowly and opened a channel to search and connect. There was only one channel nearby that was open, so he quickly entered it. In other words, Drone 1 hacked into Guanshan's Transformations communication channel. Then he sighed. TSK. No matter if you're an ability user or an ordinary person, you are still human. Before you reach Class A, you are still unable to resist the power of natural disasters. Flash floods, tsunamis, earthquakes, even a small mudslide can bury an ability user who thinks he is strong. Therefore, I am not worried at all that you will be a threat to me. With just a little guidance, you have created a coffin for yourselves. Drone 1. The old voice immediately sounded in everyone's ears. Bienjie's eyes widened, and cold sweat broke out on his back. How is this possible? This was the Transformations' secret channel for private communication, but now it had been hacked by Drone 1. This kind of technology was not something that could be done in a day, so there was no doubt that some of the Transformations' secrets had been exposed. Shuman Lin appeared to be much calmer. After all, she had asked Li about the killer bees in the Transformation. There was at least a mole in the middle and upper levels of the killer bees. But now that the killer bees were about to be wiped out, there were still no clues about the mole. It was inevitable that they would be worried. Drone 1 continued. Guanshan, how does it feel to be at your wit's end? His action of using the headset to communicate unintentionally seemed to have broken the simulator's rules. Originally, he was just shouting, but now his voice was clear and audible. Guanshan raised his eyebrows. Not very good. This answer was not unexpected. Drone 1 smiled. If you are willing to become the next Drone 2, I will stop this landslide. Guanshan did not hesitate. Okay, you stop the landslide first. Shuman Lin and Bianjia. This answer was too decisive, so decisive that Drone 1 couldn't react for a moment. Then he laughed and said, I wasn't wrong. You and the special security team are just pretending to be polite. Your real heart is indifferent to everything. You're a natural bad seed. I admire you. Drone 1 kept his promise. The mechanical left arm rotated, and a complicated hollowed-out device appeared. All kinds of glass tubes were neatly placed. He adjusted one of the glass tubes filled with ice blue crystals to a suitable position and said in a deep voice, Look carefully. This is the power of an A-class ability user, or rather a small part of the power. Drone 1 narrowed his eyes, and the glass tube was launched in an instant. Whoosh! When the glass tube hit the mudslide, it instantly shattered. Then a large amount of ice crystals suddenly burst out, freezing the mudslide in an instant. Even the water vapor in the surrounding air was condensed, forming strange shapes. Guanshan was also quite surprised. This old guy should have preserved a part of the power of other ability users and turned it into something like a temporary skill. In other words, this should be the power of an A-class elemental ability user, the power to freeze a mudslide. Do you really think that brain development has no combat power? Drone 1 sneered, and then he became amiable again. Well, I have done what I should do. Next, it is your turn. You should know how to make me trust you, right? Shuman Lin and Bianjie's hearts suddenly jumped to their throats. The meaning was very clear. He wanted Guanshan to prove his loyalty. As long as he killed the two of them, Guanshan would be immediately judged as a red high-risk ability user. Guanshan suddenly asked, Is the queen bee under the swamp? You also discovered this. Not bad, not bad. Drone 1 praised. The queen bee is indeed below. It is the source of the killer bee, but the killer bee does not listen to its orders. It has no consciousness. It is just a raw material. The reason why the Shanhua sugar has the power to combine human genes is because of its blood. Therefore, I raised it in the swamp. Perhaps he felt that Guanshan had no other way out, so he began to confide in him and told him this secret. Oh, Guanshan asked with a subtle expression, are you sure it has no consciousness? PS1. Thank you for the tips from 2019062100285578. I am Bamboo, and you meow? PS2. It has been a long time since I knocked on the bowl. Expectant eyes. Chapter 175. Drone 1 felt that this question was ridiculous. He thought to himself, I've been feeding the queen bee for so many years. How can I not know whether it is consciousness or not? Although the queen bee had been living under the swamp and rarely exposed its body, even when it was most active, it only stretched out its tentacle-like insect limbs, which was very difficult to study. But it was not very far from the ground. With some equipment, it was possible to deconstruct its physiological structure. At least, it could be known whether it had a brain and nerves. The conclusion was, of course, no. What was dormant under the swamp was just a huge piece of meat that followed its instincts. It did not have intelligence. This was a fact that Drone 1 was very sure of. However, at this moment, Drone 1 was keenly aware of a trace of strangeness from Guanshan's expression. It was a kind of natural and confident expression. It was not a guess, but a ridicule. Drone 1 frowned and still felt that it was impossible. He subconsciously retorted, from the physiological structure, it can't have consciousness at all. It's just a big insect. If you want to pin your hopes on it, I advise you not to waste your time. He looked at Shuman Lin and Bianjia next to him with a gloomy gaze. My patience is running out. I think you are a smart person. You should understand that there is no use in delaying now. Instead, it will deepen my distrust of you. In front of an A-class paranormal, Shuman Lin's ability was ineffective. Guanshan touched his chin. Although it's not very good to say this, but don't you believe in science too much? After all, even if I didn't believe in it before, in the world we live in, there is indeed a great power that surpasses science. Drone 1 felt more and more that something was wrong. He turned the glass tube in the barrel on his arm to a red grid. In terms of time, I have been a paranormal for much longer than you. This kind of thing is nonsense. What do you want to say? I will only give you the last 5 seconds. If you don't do it, we will die here together. 5, 4, 3. This glass tube was filled with fire from an elemental ability user. Since he could freeze the mudslide, he could naturally make it fall again. Drone 1's counting was extremely fast, without any sloppiness. Shuman Lin couldn't help but close her eyes tightly. She said in a trembling voice in the channel of her telepathic headset, Guanshan, kill us. That way, you still have a chance. She didn't believe that Guanshan would side with Drone 1, but now that they had the upper hand and Sun Han still hadn't arrived, there was no other way. Guanshan pretended to be a traitor. Although he would become an isolated and helpless undercover agent, at least he would not allow the killer bees to rise from the ashes in the dark and make a silent comeback. From the day they joined the Tin Formation, they had already anticipated this day, so it wasn't that difficult for them to accept it. It's not time yet. Guanshan turned his head and said to her in a deep voice. Then he took a deep breath and pulled off the worker bee pendant from his neck. At this time, the glass tube in his hand was buzzing and vibrating violently. The ferocious bee that was originally dried up like a specimen had reopened its wings. The translucent wings flashed with a metallic luster. This worker bee was very aggressive after coming back from the dead. It anxiously slammed against the glass wall, eager to rush behind Guanshan and others. That was where the queen bee was. Of course, Guanshan was stalling for time. He was waiting. He was waiting for the cool down of gravity manipulation to end, and also waiting for the consciousness of the queen bee to return. Guanshan looked at Drone 1 in the distance and said loudly, have you ever thought that your so-called queen bee doesn't want to be used as raw material by you, nor does it want to be trapped in this dirty and smelly swamp? It acts on instinct, so it instinctively wants to fly around like a free little bee. Drone 1 inch was indifferent. 3, 2, 3. Guanshan continued. So, it has actually wanted to be free for many years, but you only thought about yourself and didn't care about its feelings at all. After so many years, it has been tortured, and now it finally found a chance. Drone 1-inch paused, but it still counted to the last second. 1. Have you ever thought that although the queen bee doesn't have the conditions to produce consciousness, it can kidnap a suitable consciousness to be its pilot? As soon as Guanshan's voice fell, Drone 1 directly pressed the mechanism and launched the glass tube that carried the fire. Boom! Flames more intense than the previous methane explosion rose into the air, instantly engulfing the mudslide that was frozen in midair. This time, it was not only the mountain torrent that fell with rocks, but also the shock wave of the explosion and the horrifying heat. Guanshan looked up and saw the terrifying scene of the rocks melting directly and the mudslide turning into magma. Upside down, it was like the bloody mouth of a demon from hell. Guanshan finally couldn't pretend to be calm. Cold sweat covered his head, and he couldn't help but curse. F***ck. Do you have to be so dedicated to being a boss? I spent so much effort to say so much, and you really didn't hesitate at all. The plan to stall for time was basically a failure. But fortunately, the cool-down time of gravity control was over. He grabbed Shuman Lin and Bien Jia and immediately reversed all the gravity. He took off on the spot and flew to the high mountain on the side with a whoosh. Guanshan didn't want to use gravity control to withstand the magma mudslide. After all, he could only control 1,000 kilograms of gravity, but what was falling from above was half a mountain. If he couldn't withstand it, he would die on the spot. Although it's not unexpected, if you don't come and save us, we're really going to die. Guanshan led them to escape at lightning speed while holding the worker bee pendant tightly. He probed in his heart. Respected Queen Bee. President Li? President Li? Guanshan shouted a few times in succession. He almost thought that he had guessed wrong and was about to despair. In his consciousness, the familiar voice suddenly sounded again, but the tone was very unfamiliar. I didn't expect the world to be like this. Oh, okay. You seem to be her friend? Although I don't quite understand what it means, the enemy of my enemy is also my friend. Seeing that you gave me food, I will protect you. Okay. Although Guanshan had some doubts in his heart, he was still overjoyed when he heard the last sentence. He was about to speed up when he saw a flash of light from the corner of his eye. It was Drone 1 shooting a black glass tube again. His style of doing things was to either do nothing or go to extremes. Since Guanshan didn't accept his invitation, only death awaited him. Guanshan gritted his teeth and diverted a part of his strength to deflect the direction of the glass tube. The kinetic energy and mass of the black glass tube were beyond imagination. He didn't know what material it was made of, but it was able to divert nearly half of the gravity, causing Guanshan's speed to decrease sharply and unable to escape the range of the mudslide. Rumble, the mudslide instantly submerged the three of them, but the black glass tube didn't move at all. It's just a weight that can change its weight at will to deal with some special arcana. I didn't expect it to be used here. Drone 1 retracted his arm and smiled faintly. The ability to control gravity is rare, but the limit is easy to calculate. It can only control about 1,000 kilograms at a time. Do you think I can't see that? He looked at the mudslide that was still rolling down and showed a regretful expression. What a pity. It's rare to see an arcanist with at least 4 abilities. However, since you can't be used by me, it's better for you to die. Drone 1 was about to turn around and leave when he suddenly opened his eyes wide. In the mudslide, not only were there rocks rolling, there were also incomparably huge and thick limbs covered with a chitin shell. Slender and fluffy tentacles stretched out from the top and waved, like a ferocious monster from ancient times. Or rather, a free little bee. PS1. Thank a big yellow duck, silent waves, and 1,000-year chinchilla for their rewards. PS2. President Li didn't die. I don't give out bento easily. Patting chest. Chapter 176. The mudslide continued to surge, sweeping everything with flames. Under it, the silhouette of a behemoth was gradually rising. The rotten mud and a large number of corpses slid down from the monster like a waterfall. Its limbs stretched out, far larger than Guanshan had imagined. That so-called 50 meters was the size of it when it was curled up. When it revealed its full appearance, it was simply a terrifying fantasy creature that could cover the sky and cover the sun. Although what they saw now was not the full appearance of the queen bee because of the mudslide, but it was already understandable why the villagers of Baiha village worshipped it as the bee god. The original superstitious worship seemed reasonable at this moment. Drone One, who was about to leave, stopped. His pupils constricted, reflecting the scene like a disaster movie. He was stunned for a moment, then immediately reacted. Queen Bee really had its own consciousness, as Guanshan said. I have used all kinds of methods to test whether it has consciousness or whether it can communicate, but the answer is no. Now you tell me that it kidnapped a consciousness from somewhere else? Drone 1 Inch did not find it funny, because this meant that the queen bee was no longer a toy that he could play with at will, but a time bomb with an unknown position. He did not think that an individual that he had experimented on for more than 10 years would have emotions other than hate him, unless it had Stockholm. Drone 1 raised his arm again without any expression, rotating the launcher and aiming at the queen bee below. The waving limbs rose from the mudslide, and Guanshan and the others were hanging on it. The queen bee that suddenly came to the ground from the swamp saved them. Why is Guanshan so confident? Why did the queen bee save them? There's only one answer. The kidnapped consciousness is the teacher Li that was killed by Jiang Jian and the others. Drone 1 Inch's thoughts were still clear. As for why, first, she came to this village 7 years ago, so the queen bee is more familiar with her. Second, her own consciousness may be very stable, so she is more suitable to be the pilot. I didn't expect that the tool I controlled would turn around and become Guanshan's assistant. Drone 1's expression changed. It was impossible for him to kill the queen bee, because the queen bee was his foundation, and he still hadn't been able to replicate the same effect as the queen bee's blood. If it died, the subsequent production of the sublimation candy would be nothing. In other words, Guanshan not only had a helper, but he also had a hostage. Damn it, bang, bang, bang. Drone 1 aimed its launcher at Guanshan and the others and fired several times in a row. However, it waved its other limbs and immediately blocked all the glass tubes. The special abilities contained in those glass tubes exploded instantly, or crystallized, or like invisible blades, or continuously exploded, or... However, these special abilities only crippled a few of the queen bee's limbs and could not cause any real damage to it, because the monster was too big. When the size of a creature exceeded the limit, the quantitative change would lead to a qualitative change, and its physiological characteristics would change. Weapons that were extremely fatal to ordinary people were just harmless to it. In other words, this was the so-called animate creature. Guanshan wobbled in the air and climbed up using the legs. Just as he steadied himself, he saw one of the glass tubes explode, creating a pitch-black crack in the air. Guanshan's pupils shrank. Teleportation ability. That's right. Drone 1, who was originally standing on the cliff, suddenly appeared from the crack and floated in the air with the help of a small thruster. He looked at Guanshan and invaded the earpiece channel again. You're really lucky. It seems that I'm completely screwed today. Guanshan stared at him and remained vigilant. He laughed. Maybe it's not that I'm lucky, but that you're destined to die here today. If he did not come today, President Li would still become the consciousness of the queen bee, and Drone 1 would definitely turn against the queen bee. However, if Guanshan did not attract the attention of the queen bee and provide a few puppets as food, the queen bee's consciousness might not have awakened so quickly, or it might have been discovered and controlled by Drone 1 before it completely awakened. It was hard to say what would happen in the end. The queen bee waved its limbs and attacked Drone 1. Drone 1 raised his hand and destroyed the queen bee with an air blast. Then, he looked at Guanshan amidst the flying blood and flesh. He suddenly smiled eerily. For a mutant, death is not the end of the story sometimes. Guanshan had already taken out his Glock and Demon Blade. Drone 1 did not seem to care. He stretched out his hand and said, "What I said before still stands. I admire you. One day, you will realize that the Taiyan formation is boring and incompetent. If you think it through, I will always welcome you here. Instigation. Guanshan was not polite at all. Dream on. Although there was no insurance and housing fund, where could he find a job that paid 200,000 yuan a month? The way to get rich overnight was often written in the criminal law. Drone one in front of him was the best example. The organization was about to be destroyed, and he came here by himself. How could he have the courage to instigate a rebellion? Furthermore, the simulator was only activated because someone was threatening Guanshan and wanted to kill him. At least in the special security team, it would only be activated by the enemy, but in a place like Killer B, it would probably even be activated by his teammates. If that happened, it might trigger a massacre. The Queen Bee seemed to be enraged. It waved its limbs crazily at Drone 1. Drone 1 just looked up and said, "I hope that the next time we meet, I will hear the good news that you have decided to join us." Then he raised his hand and aimed the muzzle at his temple. "He wants to commit suicide." Guanshan was shocked. Then he suddenly remembered the description given by the simulator: controlling the string puller or being controlled by fate. Drone 1 was controlling a puppet, so the Drone 1 that was being controlled could also be a puppet. F***CK. Could it be that this guy is really a robot? With this thought, Guanshan's first reaction was to raise his gun and shoot at Drone 1's head. His second reaction was to use Kiss of the Red Lips to mark it. Bang! Bang! The gunshot was heard almost at the same time. In Guanshan's vision, the mechanical zombie's head instantly shattered like a watermelon. However, there was no brain inside the head. Instead, it was a very familiar device with a glass bottle that contained blood. EXP plus 230000. An unprecedented number popped up at the same time. Guanshan leveled up by 2 levels. LV, 17 LV, 19, current EXP, 616001000000, current HP, 11079. The final boss has been killed. The simulation has ended. This scenario will be destroyed. Player, please leave as soon as possible. Countdown, 00. 59-inch Guanshan sensed that the mark of Kiss of the Red Lips disappeared due to the death of the main body in front of him. However, the next moment, it vaguely reappeared in the southeast direction. However, because the distance was too far, even beyond the range of Kiss of the Red Lips, the real location could not be determined. Guanshan broke out in cold sweat. He is not dead. F***CK. How cautious is this guy? Could it be that he has been using a substitute to control from a distance? Rumble. The roar of a helicopter was suddenly heard from above. Guanshan looked up and saw Sun Han, who was late, wearing a combat suit. She jumped down with a fierce expression. In the blink of an eye, she landed in front of Guanshan and the others and reached out to touch the huge Queen Bee. Her actions were smooth. Guanshan widened his eyes and quickly shouted, "Wait, we are on the same side." Sun Han was stunned and did not react for a moment. She had already released her ability. F***CK. Not only did Guanshan have to drag Shuman Lin and Bianjia, but he also reached out to hold Sun Han down. He could only use his teeth to tear out a page of 100 Years of Solitude. Boom! Chapter 177. F***CK. Guanshan rushed over and grabbed Sun Han's clothes in an instant, then led everyone to teleport. From the moment Drone 1 appeared, he had already sent his shadow doppelganger to the foot of the mountain that was filled with disinfectant and bandages. At the same time, because the items in the backpack could be shared with the shadow doppelganger, Guanshan had the shadow doppelganger tear out a page of 100 Years of Solitude in the car. In this way, the teleportation anchor point of 100 Years of Solitude was changed. The original anchor point in the base had been replaced by an anchor point in the car. Before they could react, they only felt their vision blur. After a moment of dizziness, they were thrown into the car seat. At the same time, there was a huge explosion behind them. Boom! The shockwave almost overturned the off-road vehicle. The earth trembled. After experiencing several consecutive explosions and being pushed by the unbelievably large Queen Bee, the structure of the mountain had completely collapsed. The entire side of the mountain quickly disintegrated. Guanshan sat down in the front passenger seat. When he looked up, he saw a cloud of dust falling down from above. F***CK. Guanshan was dumbfounded. Before he could breathe a sigh of relief, he immediately tensed up again. Car. Drive. He quickly controlled the shadow doppelganger in the driver's seat to step on the accelerator. In an instant, the car reached its fastest speed and rushed out of the mountain road. The cool down of gravity control was not up yet, so Guanshan simply added it all to the off-road vehicle. In an instant, the car's speed soared again. After a few bumps, it barely reached a balance. The car was almost flying, but the people in the car were shaken up, their faces paler than the next. Sun Han, who was the first to wake up and wanted to ask Guanshan, was also shaken up. He quickly grabbed the seat next to him and looked out of the car window in horror. It was no longer the ground outside the car window. It was the horizon. Sun Han was shocked. You call this driving? Schumann Lin and Bianjia were shaking in their respective corners. It was not until the car shook violently again and landed on the ground that the car finally returned to its normal speed. Guanshan looked back and found that he had shaken off the mudslide. The landslide was no longer a threat for the time being. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. The countdown of the simulator ended, and the world with its own ghost movie filter returned to normal. At this time, half of the mountain had collapsed, and most of the villagers were probably dead. Who would have thought that the destruction of the set would be done in such a manner? But from the looks of it, part of the reason why Drone 1 had chosen to commit suicide so decisively was that the one here was just a substitute, so he had nothing to fear. But more importantly, because of Sun Han's arrival, he realized that he had no chance to kill Guanshan. So, before he died, he tried to instigate a few betrayals. Sun Han's face turned green. He covered his mouth for a while before regaining his senses. He asked, "What did you say just now, one of us? That monster?" She pointed at the mountain behind her. She could no longer see the figure of the queen bee. She had probably sunk back into the space below the swamp. But it should be fine for the time being. Guanshan didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the worker bee pendant that was still buzzing in his hand. He said, "That's the queen bee of the killer bees." Sun Han's eyes widened. She looked like she wanted to go back and blow it up again. Guanshan quickly explained the matter. "But these are just my guesses. When the queen bee responded to me, it didn't use the tone of a president. It could also be that after it used the president's consciousness, it gave birth to a new consciousness. But overall, it's friendly, and it has a grudge against Drone 1, so it's not impossible to use it." He was actually a little nervous. If President Lee really became the consciousness of the queen bee, even if it was only a possibility, he didn't want the queen bee to die. However, the Taiyan formation didn't seem to have a friendly attitude towards spiritual creatures. He didn't know if it could be saved. Sun Han calmed down. "We don't have the ability to take responsibility for this matter. We have to inform the higher-ups and seal off the surrounding 10 kilometers. Guanshan sighed and nodded. "Sorry, we couldn't stop Drone 1, and the one here is just a robot?" Sun Han comforted him. "A sentient being of this level has already surpassed the value of killing Drone 1. If it is really as you say, we can make use of it, then it will be a great achievement. Moreover, you have already found the biggest base of the killer bees. Even if Drone 1 is still alive, this organization won't be able to come back again in a short period of time." Sun Han's mouth twitched. At this moment, she suddenly realized that the Killer Bees organization was destroyed by Guanshan after the Taiyan formation spent so much effort to encircle and annihilate it. It was too much of a coincidence. She was a little suspicious. Guanshan applied to come to Baihe village to find his president, but he ran into the escaped Drone 1. Was it really a coincidence? If it was a plan, Sun Han looked at Guanshan and then turned to look at the mysterious shadow clone that was driving. She felt that the Taiyan formation's fear was reasonable. Guanshan did not notice Sun Han's gaze. He was taking the opportunity to check his harvest. Game simulation ended. Mountain zombie. Final boss killed. 1-1. Rating elite monster killed. 1818. Rating NPC protected. For 3186 rating acquired items mechanical heart *1, broken blood bottle *1, broken air cannon *1, ability stripper *1, someone's voice recorder rating. Excellent, can keep most of the acquired items. Your backpack accidentally dropped, broken blood bottle *1, due to the bumpy road. My condolences. Acquired reward, backpack expansion *1, skill point *2, unlocked achievement. Heroes always come late, unable to protect all the NPCs in the scene for the first time. Achievement reward, experience *233. All rewards have been sent to your backpack. Please check. Calculation complete. Player, please wait patiently for the next simulation to begin. I can't even refute the fact that I dropped an item due to the bumpy road. Guanshan's lips twitched. His control of the shadow clone was still not that good, so his driving skill, which was supposed to be a perfect 60%, had been reduced to a perfect 60%, and the bumpy road was not light for him. However, he did not expect that the NPC that was supposed to be a bonus would become a necessary condition due to the lack of normal monsters in the scenario. This caused his rating to drop. Guanshan's face was dark, and his heart was filled with dissatisfaction. How can those human traffickers be called NPCs? Isn't helping the evildoer considered murder? President Lee helped them with their charity, yet he ended up in such a state. I wonder what happened to the children who didn't make the sacrifice back then. The more Guanshan thought about it, the angrier he became. He suddenly turned around to ask, "What about those villagers? What should we do with those who are still alive?" Sun Han was familiar with this. She often helped the logistics team with their work. Since these people are just normal people, erase their memories and hand them over to the local court to be judged according to the normal procedure. They are not under the jurisdiction of the Taiyan formation. Guanshan's heart sank. He remembered the conversation between Dian and Jiang. Drone 1 must have helped the village hide the traces of his actions for many years. With his ability, even the Taiyan formation would have a hard time tracking him down. Otherwise, how could he have hidden killer bees for so many years? More importantly, the Taiyan formation would not go through so much trouble for a few normal people. Then, these villagers would most likely get away with it. Would they be locked up for a few decades, or even less, then released and continue to live a peaceful life? Guanshan rubbed the recording pen in his hand and took out the old photo that Li Jing had shown him. He didn't know when this photo had been put into his pocket. President Li's whereabouts were still unknown, and his body might not even be found. It was all because of the villagers of Baiha village. He could not accept it. The off-road vehicle drove onto the road. Immediately, a few helicopters came to pick them up. After Sun Han assigned the task, she looked back and found that Guanshan was gone. Sun Han was stunned. Shuman Lin quickly walked over and said, "Guanshan said that he remembered something. He will be back in 3 hours. PS1. I sincerely recommend a friend's book. It's called Real Movie King. It's entertaining and refreshing. It's very good. Go and read it. PS2. Don't forget my bowl. Put your tickets in here. Put it down with a bang."